Warrior Lore. Chapter 1918. However, Lian Qingrong's gaze didn't linger for long. She looked at the disciples of the famous families and the golden-winged rocks and said, "The person the Huang country wants hasn't fallen into the hands of the famous families yet. Why do you need to stir up trouble again? Those evil spirits haven't gone far yet. If we kill each other and attract those evil spirits and demonic beasts, it will implicate everyone." Lian Qingrong's words immediately surprised everyone. The golden-winged rocks, the Huang country, and the famous families were three. Even the Taoists and Buddhists knew that it wasn't good for them to interfere. It was a whirlpool. Who would have thought that the successor of the Great Snow Mountain would interfere? Moreover, she was obviously biased towards the famous families. This naturally surprised everyone. "Lian Qingrong, what do you mean by this? Are you siding with the famous families? Back then, you were trampled on by the Rock Emperor of the Huang country. Have you forgotten the pain after the scar healed?" Mo Tianxiao's expression darkened. His eyes were cold as he stared at Lian Qingrong. "Mo Tianxiao, others might be afraid of you, but I'm not. Don't talk about the Huang country's ruler. If you have the ability, let's fight." An icy aura surged around Lian Qingrong. Frost appeared around her as she stared at Mo Tianxiao. "You want to fight? I want to test your current strength. I'll accompany you." Mo Tianxiao had never been a good person to provoke. Although he hadn't entered the Supreme Tomb in the Divine Domain, the benefits he had obtained later were even better than many of the geniuses who had entered the Supreme Tomb. He definitely wasn't afraid of Lian Qingrong. Those evil spirits just left and could return at any time. If the Huang country and the famous families both suffer heavy losses, be careful of the dragons and legalism returning. At that time, the gains won't make up for the losses. Moreover, the person the Huang country is looking for isn't in the hands of the famous families. Why go too far? At that time, if those evil spirits and demonic beasts return, it will indeed be disadvantageous to all of us. Du Xiaofu spoke, showing signs that he was siding with the famous families. Yelu Han looked at Du Xiaofu in astonishment, but then he obviously agreed with Du Xiaofu. He was already unhappy with the desolate country. Everyone was flabbergasted. No one had thought that the descendant of the Great Snow Mountain, Lian Qingrong, would intervene. What was even more unexpected was that the purple-haired man who called himself Fu Xiaodu and Yelu Han were also clearly supporting a famous family. These were three powerhouses with decent strength. None of them were easy to deal with. If the three of them were to really help the famous clan, then even if the desolate country and the Golden Rock clan were to win, they would have to pay a hefty price. At this moment, the happiest people were naturally the disciples of the famous families. In particular, Hui Yuan and the leader of the famous family elders were secretly pleasantly surprised. If the descendant of the Great Snow Mountain, the heavenly demon Yelu Han, and the purple-haired man really did not like the desolate country and decided to help the famous family, then they would have more support. The descendant of the Great Snow Mountain, Lian Qingrong, had been seriously injured by the demon king, Du Xiaofu. The heavenly demon Yelu Han had not asked for help from the desolate country at the last moment. They were afraid that this had nothing to do with the desolate country. It was definitely possible that they had been tricked by that brat Du Xiaofu. At this moment, the famous family elders did not have any doubts. It seemed that that brat Du Xiaofu had many enemies outside. Xiaolo Guanyu's golden eyes swept across Lian Qingrong, the heavenly demon Yelu Han, and Du Xiaofu. Finally, his eyes moved away from the famous family elders. He said to Du Xiaoqing, "Little Qing, let's forget about this matter for now. Finding your sister-in-law is more important. Let's go to the heavenly Yu Mountain to find her first. According to the information we received, that sister-in-law of yours should also be heading to the heavenly Yu Mountain." Zhao Zhiheng said. He felt that the famous family elders did not seem to be lying. Moreover, this was indeed not the right time to make a move. With the threat of the evil spirits and demonic beasts, as well as the legalism and dragons in the vicinity, once they made a move against the famous family elders, it would not be beneficial for them. "All right, let's go find Sister Qing first." Du Xiaoqing nodded. She did not want to immediately start a fight with the famous family elders. She only wanted to see if she could find any information about Dongli Qingqing. At this moment, she felt that the famous family elders were unable to do anything to Dongli Qingqing. The most important thing now was to find Sister Ching Ching. Otherwise, she would not be able to face her brother when the time came. Let's go. Jialo Guanyu soared into the sky and left. Everyone followed behind. Swoosh, swoosh. The surrounding people gradually left as well. No one wanted those evil spirits to return. After all, everyone came here for the heavenly Yu Mountain. The golden-winged great rocks and the desolate nations people were also in the direction of the heavenly Yu Mountain. They followed behind. If they encountered an army of evil spirits and demonic beasts, they would be able to obtain some protection. Let's go. The Taoists and Buddhists did not linger either. This place was not suitable for them to stay for long. They also needed to find a place to heal their injuries. The heavenly Yu Mountain had appeared, and they did not want others to take the initiative. Brother Yelu, you also came for the heavenly Yu Mountain, right? There are many people from various major forces. Why don't we travel together? Watching the golden-winged great rocks and the desolate nation's disciples leave, Du Xiaofu's eyes secretly moved. He looked at the heavenly demon Yelu Han and asked, "That's exactly what I was thinking." Yelu Han nodded. This Fu Xiaofu had intervened to help. He was probably looking for an ally to enter the heavenly Yu Mountain together. If he was alone, he would not be able to compete with the other major forces. Moreover, he still had to face the legalism and dragons, and even the school of vertical and horizontal. At this moment, he indeed needed a strong ally. Can you come with us? We can travel together and look after each other. What do you think? Du Xiaofu looked at the great snow mountain's descendant, Lian Qingrong, and asked. It was obvious that he wanted to form an alliance with her. Forget it. You guys already have a lot of trouble. Take care. Lian Qingrong smiled and bluntly refused. This guy and Yelu Han are the targets of the legalism, the school of vertical and horizontal, and the dragons. Is he still looking for someone to be cannon fodder? Some of the famous clan members muttered in their hearts, but they did not say it out loud. After all, these two people had helped the famous clan. Forget it. We won't force you, but you are always welcome. Haha. Du Xiaofu smiled and signaled the heavenly demon Yelu Han with his eyes. Then, he leaped up and disappeared into the void. Seeing Du Xiaofu and the heavenly demon Yelu Han leave, the famous clans Hui Yuan and the leading old man's eyes flickered. The Great Snow Mountain's inheritance is ancient and was once prominent in the world. It was a pity that we never got to see it. Fortunately, the Great Snow Mountain has produced another descendant and shocked the world. The leading old man of the famous clan spoke to Lian Qingrong very politely. A smile hung on his pale old face as he said, "Everyone is going to the heavenly Yu Mountain. Why don't you come with us? We know a lot of secret information about the heavenly Yu Mountain. If we go together, we can look after each other." The leading old man of the famous clan originally wanted to rope in the heavenly demon Yelu Han and the mysterious purple-haired man. However, the two had offended the legalism, the school of vertical and horizontal, and the dragons. If the famous clan tried to rope them in, they would undoubtedly become enemies with the legalism, the school of vertical and horizontal, and the dragons. After weighing the pros and cons, the leading old man of the famous clan had no choice but to give up on the idea of roping in the heavenly demon Yelu Han and the mysterious purple-haired man. It was not wise to start a conflict with the dragons, the legalism, and the school of vertical and horizontal for the two of them. On the contrary, the Great Snow Mountain's descendant, Lian Qingrong, could definitely be roped in. "Brother Lian, please come with us." Hui Yuan spoke, his attitude extremely modest. This was the famous clan's olive branch. They wanted to rope in the Great Snow Mountain's descendant, who would be a great help in the heavenly devil battlefield. If they could rope in her in the future, it would be even better. One had to know that she was a supreme being. She was on the same level as the heavenly wolf Gu Tianxiao, the heavenly demon Yelu Han, and the fire cloud evil god Dugu Fenshin. That's fine. Then I'll have to trouble you. Lian Qingrong looked at the leading old man of the famous clan and Hui Yuan. After a moment of hesitation, she nodded under their expectant gazes. That's great. The famous clan's members were secretly delighted. If they could rope in such a supreme being, it would definitely be a great help. The mountains were deep and lush with unknown plants that emitted light. On a mountain peak, Several members of the legalism were recuperating, their bodies shrouded in light. Xiaojing, you should have killed that brat in Yaluhan. Han Ke asked Du Xiaojing. Although she had something to say to Long Ming, she still hadn't let it go. Those evil spirits are being controlled by someone. Someone is nearby. The person you want to kill is hiding his strength. I can't see through him. Du Xiaojing stood on the mountain peak, looking into the distance. His gaze was calm and carried a kind of ethereal feeling. You're saying that the brat is still hiding his strength? Han Ke frowned. He also felt that the mysterious purple-haired man hadn't used his full strength when he fought with him. He felt like he hadn't had enough. He should be very strong. I'm afraid it won't be easy to kill him. Moreover, the Heavenly Yu Mountain has already appeared. Let's heal quickly. It won't be too late to act after the Heavenly Yu Mountain is over, said Du Xiaojing. The corner of Han Ke's eyes twitched. He was speechless. He had indeed suspected that the brat was hiding his strength. Xiaojing, you're a disciple of the legalism. You have the bloodline of the legalism. When the heavenly devil battlefield opens, the great calamity of the world will descend again. But even if this great calamity can't be stopped, the legalism still has a chance to stay out of it. There are too many secrets in this world. With your talent, you will have unimaginable glory in the future. Do you understand? Han Ke said sincerely. His voice was like the sound of the Tao that could penetrate people's hearts. I understand. Du Xiaojing turned back, his expression calm. He then sat down cross-legged, closed his eyes, and circulated his energy to heal his injuries. Whoosh! In a hidden cave, there were restrictions and seals set up. Inside the cave, there was a mysterious white light shrouding it. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged, circulating a mysterious incomplete cultivation technique. An ancient and mysterious pressure spread out. Not far away, the heavenly demon Yelu Han was surrounded by a dark red evil aura. His injuries were not light, and he had consumed a lot of energy. He could encounter the legalism, dragons, and people from the school of vertical and horizontal at any time. He needed to be in peak condition. Whoosh! The white divine light retracted. Du Xiaofu opened his eyes, which were bright and clear. He spat out a mouthful of turbid qi, and the aura around him shook the void. Chapter 1919. Brother Fu, you seem to be recovering well. Yelu Han's voice sounded. He had also stopped his breathing and his face had regained some color. However, when he saw that Du Xiaofu seemed to be completely fine, he was secretly shocked. I'm fine. How is your recovery? Du Xiaofu got up and stretched his body. He cast the disguised divine art, and his entire temperament changed. I'm fine now. We can set off. Yelu Han nodded. The battle between the evil spirits and the demonic beasts didn't have much effect on him. His cultivation method and meridian spirit could absorb the baleful aura for his own use. It was extremely abnormal. The Heavenly Yu Mountain has appeared. I'm sure that all the forces have already gathered there. When the time comes, there will be a fierce battle. Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. His sister Xiaojing, Su Yangzi, Hung Luan, and the others had all come for the Heavenly Yu Mountain. Not long ago, when the evil spirits and demonic beasts retreated, they felt a familiar, powerful aura. This time, there would definitely be a fierce battle. The 9 great families, Huang Country, Golden Winged Great Peng Clan, and the others have the advantage in numbers. Maybe we can find some people to ally with. Otherwise, when the time comes, we will be at a disadvantage. Yelu Han pondered. He couldn't help but be wary of the legalism Du Xiaojing. This time, if it wasn't for Fu Xiaodu's help, just Long Ming and the legalism Han Kuangying would be enough to kill him. At this moment, Du Xiaojing and the others had also gone to the Heavenly Yu Mountain. If they didn't have the strength to protect themselves, not to mention fighting for the legendary heavenly treasures, their own lives would be in danger. However, there aren't many people who can compete with the 9 great families, the Golden Winged Great Peng Clan and the Huang Country. Yelu Han frowned. It wasn't easy to form an alliance with the 9 great clans, the Huang Country and the Golden Winged Rock Clan. At the very least, only the descendant of the Great Snowy Mountain, Lin Qingrong, had the qualifications to form an alliance with him. Only people of that level were qualified to form an alliance with him. However, People at that level were definitely not easy to find. Even if they found them, they might not necessarily form an alliance with him. After all, the news that he was being pursued by the 9 Great Pung clan, the dragons, and the School of Legalism had already spread across the heavenly devil battlefield. Du Xiaofu looked at Yelu Han with a faint smile on his face. Are you afraid of Du Xiaojing? I'm not afraid. Nirvana. Nirvana. Great Nirvana, a great supreme Nirvana, innate saint sovereign, is as Duzazazaz is great is Nirvana. A saint to Nirvana great Pung. Great Yana great Nirvana Pung greats Nirvana in Nirvana, in. Haha, let's go. The heavenly Yu mountain should be very lively now. Du Xiaofu laughed heartily as he looked at Yelu Han. However, a cold glint flashed across his eyes as he narrowed his eyes and said, they should also be rushing to the heavenly Yu mountain. Swoosh, swoosh, a moment later. The seal of the cave opened and the 2 figures flew away. In the dusky sky, there was a radiance hanging in the sky. It was unknown whether it was the moon or the sun. The radiance was dim and covered by a red blood mist. The mountains were rugged and magnificent. There wasn't much life, but one could occasionally see a lush green land. Swoosh, swoosh, 2 figures streaked across the sky. They were Du Xiaofu and heavenly demon Yelu Han, who were heading towards the heavenly Yu mountain. Has it always been like this? How long have we been in here? Du Xiaofu looked at the radiance in the sky covered by the blood mist and asked, it's daytime, so the radiance is brighter than at night. Some places have accumulated too much demonic aura and can't be seen. Heavenly demon Yelu Han explained to Du Xiaofu, explaining to Du Xiaofu while rolling his eyes at Du Xiaofu. So that's how it is. Du Xiaofu didn't care about Yelu Han's rolling eyes. The 2 had been rushing for several hours. With their speed, they had crossed a large area. The legend of the heavenly Yu mountain was enough to attract experts from all over the world. There was also an army of evil spirits and demonic beasts. Not long ago, a half-sage evil spirit expert had appeared. Therefore, Du Xiaofu and Yelu Han didn't dare to be careless. Along the way, the 2 of them also encountered many creatures who were also heading towards the heavenly Yu mountain. However, with Du Xiaofu and Yelu Han's speed and the invisible aura they released, no one dared to provoke them. The heavenly Yu mountain isn't actually a mountain. It's said that it's a vast mountain range. It's surrounded by dangers and can't be climbed. Even if you reach the heavenly Yu mountain, you might not be able to enter. Yelu Han told Du Xiaofu everything he knew about the heavenly Yu mountain. He didn't hide anything. Are there living creatures in the heavenly Yu mountain? Du Xiaofu asked curiously. He knew that heavenly demon Yelu Han was the same as Lin Xingrong and heavenly wolf Gu Tianxiao. Although he looked young, he was someone who had sealed him. In fact, he was someone who had lived for a long time. He might even be older than Han Ke Yao and the others. Moreover, he had entered the heavenly devil battlefield earlier. He might know more than him. I don't know if there are living creatures in the heavenly Yu mountain, but saint herbs are considered living creatures. It's said that there are saint herbs in the heavenly Yu mountain. However, even if you enter the heavenly Yu mountain, it's very difficult to obtain them, Yelu Han said. Du Xiaofu clicked his tongue. He had heard many legends along the way. For example, there were rumors that if one took a saint herb, even an ordinary person could soar to the heavens in a single step. They could compete with the supreme pride of heaven, or even directly step into the saint realm. There were also rumors that the heavenly Yu mountain had countless spirit herbs. Over the years, some of these spirit herbs had already turned into monster spirits. You don't seem to know anything. Where did you come from? I've never heard of your name before. With your talent and cultivation strength, it shouldn't be like this. Yelu Han was very curious about Du Xiaofu. Why didn't such a young powerhouse have any fame? He hadn't even heard of him in the divine realm. This made Yelu Han even more suspicious. My sect is ancient, and there are very few disciples. Now, I'm the only one left. I haven't come out for a long time. Now that the heavenly devil battlefield has opened, I've come out on my master's orders. I want to sweep through the world and shake the world with my name. Du Xiaofu calmly said. Yelu Han glanced sideways at Du Xiaofu. He was a bit curious, but he no longer doubted him. His situation was similar to his. What about you? Where did you come from? I heard people say that you sealed yourself. Why? Du Xiaofu's eyes darkened as he asked Yelu Han. He was also very curious about Yelu Han's origin. My sect is also ancient. In my generation, I'm the last one. I sealed myself because I wanted to fight for a great opportunity in the sovereign tomb and advance further. When the sovereign tomb was mentioned, Yelu Han still had some lingering fear and anger. Back then, he had almost been trampled to death by the demon king, Du Xiaofu. Later, he had been tricked, which was why he was in such a troublesome situation now. After a slight pause, Yelu Han continued, "Later on, although I obtained some benefits in the sovereign tomb, I missed the greatest opportunity by a step." Du Xiaofu was calm when he heard this, but he was very clear in his heart. Yelu Han's words were simple, but such a person was very powerful and terrifying. Back then, he was a nirvana sovereign, but he was willing to seal himself for thousands of years just to improve his foundation. If he had the opportunity, his achievements would be limitless. It hadn't been long since the divine domain opened. At this moment, Yelu Han was already at the half-step nirvana realm. This kind of progress was enough to prove how terrifying his talent was. This time, you fought with the legalism's Han Ke Feng. No matter what, the legalism, the dragons, and even the school of vertical and horizontal will remember you. You have to be careful. This time, the experts from the three great clans are not limited to just Han Ke Feng, Long Ming, and the others. There are even more experts from the older generation who have come. They are searching for other places in the heavenly devil battlefield. Once they encounter us, they won't be polite. Yelu Han said to Du Xiaofu. No matter what the other party's goal was, it was because of him that they had offended the three great clans. It doesn't matter. If we really fight, who knows who will be the unlucky one? Du Xiaofu helplessly shrugged. He didn't care about the people from the legalism, school of vertical and horizontal and dragons. However, Du Xiaofu was also worried. A half-step sage-level evil spirit had already appeared in the heavenly devil battlefield. If the sage realm experts from the legalism, school of vertical and horizontal, and dragons were able to enter the heavenly devil battlefield, then things would be a bit bad. Thus, he had to increase his cultivation as soon as possible. Yelu Han didn't say much about Du Xiaofu's indifferent words. He also knew that when he fought with Han Ke Feng, this mysterious man who called himself Fu Xiaodu hadn't used his full strength. Perhaps he was still holding back. Whoosh whoosh. Ow. The two of them rushed towards the heavenly Yu mountain. Along the way, they encountered more and more living beings. There were humans, beasts, and many beasts in human form. They were extraordinary, and there were many powerful auras. However, these living beings didn't interfere with each other. No one wanted to cause trouble. Du Xiaofu and Yelu Han continued on their way. Their speed surpassed many people. After a few more hours, a dark plain appeared, but there was a red blood mist lingering in the sky. I heard that after passing through this plain, we should arrive at the heavenly Yu mountain, Yelu Han said, looking into the distance. They had finally arrived at their destination. He was also filled with anticipation for the legendary saint medicine in the heavenly Yu mountain. If he could obtain it, he would be able to suppress all the supreme heaven's pride experts. There seems to be some movement inside. Du Xiaofu didn't look at the endless dark plain. Instead, he looked at the towering mountain range on the left side of the plain. He narrowed his eyes and felt some movement. There was an extremely powerful aura fluctuating in the distance. Yelu Han frowned and looked in the direction Du Xiaofu was looking. However, he didn't see anything. This made Yelu Han secretly shocked. This was enough to prove that the other party's primordial spirit was much stronger than his. The aura seems familiar. Let's go take a look. Du Xiaofu hesitated for a moment, then jumped into the mountain range. Yelu Han stared at Du Xiaofu's back, but he had no choice but to follow. Chapter 1920. A War. In the dusky mountain range, the roars of beasts could be heard as raging flames filled the sky. Numerous demonic beasts were wailing miserably in the flames, but they were unable to escape. One by one, the huge demonic beasts were burned to ashes by the terrifying flames. Even the demonic chi was burned into nothingness. The flames were not ordinary flames. They could burn everything. Hula! A blazing aura fluctuated as the vast sea of flames shrank. In the end, a cluster of raging flames seemed to rise. A young man in flame armor walked out of the raging flames. His eyes were like two volcanoes that could burn and destroy everything. But then the terrifying aura disappeared. This man was very young and had an invisible aura of heaven and earth. It was as if a god of fire had descended. "Why are you hiding? You're just a scoundrel." The young man in flame armor glanced at the distant sky with blazing eyes. His voice was calm, but there was a domineering aura in it. "Bullshit. We're just here to watch the show." A shout came from afar. When the last word fell, two figures landed in the void. These two were none other than Du Xiaofu and heavenly demon Yelu Han. Fire Cloud evil god Dugu Finchen, a terrifying guy. He also comes from a declining ancient power. He's a supreme nirvana realm cultivator. When the two figures landed, heavenly demon Yelu Han's slightly surprised voice transmission fell into Du Xiaofu's ears. How could Du Xiaofu not recognize the man in ancient flame armor in front of him? He had interacted with him in the divine domain. Back then, Du Xiaofu had learned from Qi, and little Xingxing that he had fought with the two of them. This Dugu Finchen seemed to have a good relationship with Lian Qingrong. He was also an expert on the same level as the undead spirit demon Dongfang Qingmu, the dark hell emperor Ming Yao, and heavenly demon Yelu Han. Du Xiaofu wasn't surprised to see Dugu Finchen here. It seemed like this guy had most likely come for the heavenly Yu Mountain. However, he was more interested in Dugu Finchen's current cultivation. However, Du Xiaofu secretly observed Dugu Finchen. He discovered that Dugu Finchen also had some kind of secret technique. His cultivation was restrained, and it was difficult to see through him. However, he could feel that his invisible aura was not inferior to the heavenly evil Yelu Han. Yelu Han. When Fire Cloud evil god Dugu Finchen saw heavenly fiend Du Xiaofu, he was also secretly surprised. His blazing eyes rippled as he curiously sized up Du Xiaofu. Dugu Finchen was curious about this unfamiliar purple-haired man. His aura was calm and undetectable. Dugu Finchen had never met him before. Since he was able to walk together with the heavenly fiend Yelu Han, he would not be a weakling. "What's the matter?" Staring at Yelu Han and Du Xiaofu, Dugu Finchen spoke. His qi was arrogant, but it wasn't annoying. People like him should be arrogant. "Nothing, we're just passing by." Yelu Han's eyes flickered. His invisible aura was not inferior to Dugu Finchen's. When the two of them met, they couldn't help but feel that neither was willing to give an inch. Du Xiaofu looked around. The vast mountain range had been burned into a dark red color by the raging flames. The blazing aura was still lingering in the air. Below him, there were traces of ancient caves and ancient remnant arrays. It seemed like the fire cloud evil god Dugu Finchen had been searching for treasures here. He had encountered a powerful demonic beast and caused a great battle. "No, we have something to do." As Yelu Han's voice faded, Du Xiaofu waved his hand and said to Dugu Finchen. Hearing this, Yelu Han's expression slightly changed. Dugu Finchen looked straight at Du Xiaofu and asked, "Who are you? Why are you looking for me?" "Wait a moment, I'll tell you later." Du Xiaofu ignored Dugu Finchen and asked Yelu Han, "Brother Yelu, do you think Dugu Finchen is qualified to form an alliance with us? Aren't we looking for someone to form an alliance with? Do you think he is qualified? If not, then forget it." Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Yelu Han's expression couldn't help but twitch. So this guy didn't even know Dugu Finchen? However, at this moment, they were indeed looking for someone to form an alliance with. Fire Cloud Evil God, Great Snow Mountain's descendant Lian Qingrong, and himself were all existences on the same level. Naturally, they were the most qualified. Yelu Han helplessly smiled bitterly and nodded to Du Xiaofu, saying, "He is qualified." "That's good. I thought he wasn't qualified." Du Xiaofu said seriously. Dugu Finchen's volcano-like eyes were about to erupt at any time after hearing Du Xiaofu's words. A stranger actually didn't put him in his eyes and wanted to form an alliance with him. He even doubted whether he was qualified or not. How could Dugu Finchen, who was originally arrogant and belligerent, endure such an attitude and contempt? His reappearance had shocked the world. A nirvana supremacy was enough to compete for supremacy among supremes. However, The other party was just a stranger, yet he did not take him to heart. Brat, you are very arrogant, aren't you? Dugu Fenshin stared at Du Xiaofu with raging flames in his eyes. You will get used to it in the future, Du Xiaofu replied. He then looked at Dugu Fenshin and said, We are looking for someone to form an alliance with and go to Heavenly U Mountain. You should come with us and we will split the treasures equally. How about it? Ha 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 ha. Dugu Fenshin laughed heartily. He was very arrogant, born with an innate arrogance. He didn't even put his peers from the 9 great clans in his eyes. At this moment, this stranger was trying to rope him in to form an alliance. How could he feel good? Moreover, the news of evil spirit and being chased by legalism had spread across the entire heavenly devil battlefield. How could he not know? Even if he wanted to form an alliance with someone, he wouldn't form an alliance with Yelu Han. Dugu Fenshin stared at Du Xiaofu and said in a gloomy tone, Are you qualified? Little Du, don't be so arrogant. Cultivation is not easy. Be careful of your own mistakes. Du Xiaofu glared at Dugu Fenshin like an elder. Which ancient sect does this brat belong to? Yelu Han secretly smacked his lips while looking at Du Xiaofu. He wasn't afraid of Dugu Fenshin, but he definitely wouldn't put him in his eyes like this. Given Dugu Fenshin's fiery temper, calling him Little Du was enough to make him fight to the death. Brat, I have to say, you're making me unhappy. Dugu Fenshin's words came out of his mouth. The ancient flame armor on his body emitted blazing flame runes. His aura instantly soared, and the air started to distort. AI, it seems like you don't agree. What a pity. Du Xiaofu sighed, feeling a sense of disappointment. He then glanced at Yelu Han and said, Brother Yelu, let's kill him. He should have some good treasures on him. Let's split them equally. This, Yelu Han couldn't help but be startled when he heard Du Xiaofu's words. Dugu Fenshin didn't want to form an alliance with him. This was the fire cloud evil god, Dugu Fenshin. This guy actually wanted to kill him. Even if the two of them weren't inferior to Dugu Fenshin, they might not be able to kill him even if they joined hands. Defeating and killing were two completely different things. Who didn't have a few life-saving trump cards? Go all out, don't let this guy escape. Du Xiaofu patted Yelu Han's shoulder and said. Yelu Han didn't say a word. His eyes were filled with waves and his heart was pounding. The outside world called him Heavenly Fiend because he killed people without blinking an eye. But at this moment, Yelu Han felt that this seemingly gentle guy was even more vicious and merciless than him. Come here and die. Dugu Fenshin couldn't bear it anymore. Flames surged out from his feet like a cloud of flames. He stood on top of the cloud and looked at Du Xiaofu with disdain. He didn't say anything. He wanted to kill the former. This was his stance. I will ruthlessly beat you up. Du Xiaofu cast a sidelong glance at Dugu Fenshin. He stood in the sky, facing Dugu Fenshin's blazing aura without moving. His aura was even more domineering than Dugu Fenshin's. This guy is really, Yelu Han was completely speechless. This was probably the first time in so many years that someone dared to not put Dugu Fenshin in his eyes. Even though he knew that Dugu Fenshin was unfathomable, Dugu Fenshin was definitely not an ordinary person. Dugu Fenshin's aura was clearly blazing, but his expression was ice-cold at the moment. Not to mention the past, even in the past few years, no one had ever acted so arrogantly in front of him. Some supreme-level geniuses would take a detour when they encountered him. Not many people dared to compete with him. They were afraid of fighting him. But now, this stranger in front of him didn't put him in his eyes. He couldn't bear it anymore. Chapter 1921. You will pay the price for your arrogance. Dugu Fenshin made his move. A blazing aura instantly gushed out in all directions. Raging flames surged and turned into a flaming bird. It was destructive and terrifying. It flapped its wings and blasted open spatial ripples. It pressed down towards Du Xiaofu from all directions. This kind of aura was very terrifying. Although Dugu Fenshin didn't go all out, he didn't hold back either. Sizzle! The huge flaming bird spread its wings and covered the sky. The blazing aura of destruction was even more terrifying. It's just a so-so. If it's only this kind of strength, I'll be disappointed. You don't have the qualifications to form an alliance with me. Du Xiaofu spoke softly in a carefree manner as he soared into the sky. He didn't retreat but advanced instead. His hands formed seals, and with a sweep of his sleeve, an invisible fluctuation directly shot into the sky. There were mysterious runes flashing about, and they carried the Tao of nature as they instantly dispersed the flaming bird. In an instant, terrifying blazing flame runes poured out like lava. It was blazing and terrifying. Yelu Han didn't find it strange. He knew Du Xiaofu's strength. However, Dugu Finshin was a little shocked. His heart trembled. Although he didn't use his full strength just now, it was enough to make an ordinary domain realm cultivator not dare to face it head-on. However, that mysterious purple-haired man had effortlessly countered his attack. With this attack, Dugu Finshin was certain that the mysterious purple-haired man was definitely not weaker than Yelu Han. Good. You do have some ability. Dugu Finshin no longer dared to be careless. His expression turned serious as his hair fluttered in the wind. His ancient flame armor blazed brightly as a wave of blazing flame swept out from his body. Accompanied by the rumbling sound of wind and thunder, it was like a surging tsunami as it swept toward Du Xiaofu. Sizzle! Du Xiaofu's figure moved horizontally, but he did not retreat. The terrifying flames could destroy everything. Although Du Xiaofu had concealed his strength, with the immortal Xian body and the purple flame demonic phoenix in his body, such flames could not do much damage to him. Even if Du Xiaofu didn't do anything, such fire wouldn't be able to harm his body. Qila. This time, Du Xiaofu took the initiative to attack. With a shake of his arm, he charged through the waves of flames. He used the simplest and most direct attack, raising his fist and punching at Dugu Finshin. Boom! Wherever this punch passed, spatial ripples spread out in all directions, cutting off and dispersing the huge wave of flames. The sound of wind and thunder resounded, as if the void was about to be shattered. The scene was simple and domineering, but the scene was extremely terrifying. There was an aura that devoured mountains and rivers, a power that looked down on the world. Dugu Finshin's heart trembled once again. His pupils shrunk a little, but in an instant, his fist collided with Dugu Finshin's like a fireball. Boom! The flames in the air were like a tide, surging violently as runes scattered in all directions. Qilala, under such a punch, Dugu Finshin's body was directly pushed back in the void. His expression instantly changed. At this moment, only Dugu Finshin himself knew that his fist was numb with intense pain. It was as if his bones were about to crack. The purple-haired man's fist was like the toughest steel plate, almost shattering his bones. Du Xiaofu stood in the void, but his body only swayed a few times. Although he suppressed his cultivation, with Du Xiaofu's current cultivation, Dugu Finshin wouldn't be able to gain any advantage even if he went all out. He should also be at the half-step rebirth realm, Du Xiaofu muttered in his heart. With just one move, he had roughly probed Dugu Finshin's true cultivation level. It seemed to be on the same level as the heavenly demon Yelu Han. Huff! Yelu Han was speechless when he saw Dugu Finshin being pushed back while Du Xiaofu remained unmoved. Yelu Han felt that he wasn't much stronger than Dugu Finshin. If he fought with this prefectural governor, he would also be suppressed. Boom! After being suppressed in one move, Dugu Finshin's body was shrouded in endless magma-like flames. An ancient and mysterious pressure spread out from the ancient flame armor that covered his body. His eyes seemed to contain two volcanoes as he unreservedly released his half-step rebirth nirvana cultivation. Surging flames shot out from the void, enveloping the sky and burning the world. Are you going all out? Let's end this quickly. Sensing Dugu Finshin's aura, Du Xiaofu's lips curled into a smile. His aura suddenly changed as well. Boom! The void suddenly changed color, and a mysterious power descended. In an instant, resplendent runes gushed out from Du Xiaofu's body, and his body underwent a strange transformation. Du Xiaofu's body swelled and turned into a 300-meter-tall giant. This was the body of the sorcerer god. His entire body was covered in misty mist as if millions of mountains had descended from the sky. He had traveled through time and space from ancient times. The power of the sorcerer god? Are you from the scholarly faction? Dugu Finshin couldn't help but ask in surprise. He had fought with the scholarly faction before he was sealed, so he was very familiar with the power of the sorcerer god. I have no relationship with the scholarly faction. Du Xiaofu's enormous body of the shaman god stood towering in midair as he spoke. His voice was like a thunderclap, and it caused dark clouds to press down from the sky while winds and clouds to surge. The surging energy of the shaman god traversed space from the ancient times, and it was extremely terrifying. Boom! The flames around Dugu Finchen's body began to become violent and fierce. A blazing aura enveloped the void as if countless volcanoes were erupting. Feeling the terrifying power of the sorcerer god, he knew that today was going to be a great battle. Fire Sovereign Finger. Boom! A fingerprint swept out from Dugu Finchen's hand. This fingerprint swept through the sky as if it contained the eruption of a volcano. Dugu Finchen's battle intent surged as he didn't retreat. Sorcerer breaks all laws. Du Xiaofu made his move. The surrounding void was filled with endless wind and thunder. In an instant, a sea of fire covered the sky as the power of the sorcerer god enveloped the void. Du Xiaofu and Dugu Finchen fought fiercely. The two of them exchanged several moves in an instant. The battle between the two of them could shatter the void with a raise of their hands, but it also contained an indescribable aura. Both of them could look down on their peers. This was a battle between supremes. Every move of theirs was vast and mighty, shattering the void. Boom! In this intense battle, a monstrous baleful aura suddenly surged into the sky and swept through the firmament. The billowing baleful aura gushed out from the void. Heavenly demon Yelu Han made his move and didn't stay idle. At this point, Yelu Han had no other choice. Fu Xiao had even used the power of the sorcerer god to deal with Dugu Finchen. If he let Dugu Finchen escape today, he would definitely come to settle accounts with him in the future. Rumble. The heavenly sound was unceasing, and 6 divine rings rose into the sky. From Yelu Han's body, a vast power surged out along with billowing baleful aura. It was as if there was a divine fire burning in his body. Dazzling dark red runes were released, turning into a majestic sea of baleful aura. The runes were suffused with a dazzling light. This sea of baleful aura turned into a solid substance, devouring everything. Kill. Kill. Yelu Han used the power of the sorcerer god and his sea of baleful aura. The sea of baleful aura surged and affected the space-time, turning into a thunderous power that swept towards Dugu Finchen. Yelu Han. Although Dugu Finchen was at a disadvantage from the beginning of the battle with Du Xiaofu, his heart was heavy when Yelu Han joined the battle. However, the corners of his mouth curled up into a scorching cold smile. His eyes were filled with battle intent. He was originally a battle maniac. Ha 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 ha. So what if you join hands? Dugu Finchen laughed. Similarly, 6 dazzling lights appeared in the sky, forming a blazing divine ring that enveloped his body. It was as if he was enveloped in 6 overlapping suns. Blazing light bloomed, and an indescribable power descended from the void, distorting the space and affecting the space-time. Boom! At the same time, mysterious talismans covered his entire body. Dugu Finchen activated his sea of baleful aura. It was a terrifying scarlet tree vine that was golden in color and emitted a terrifying aura. It's actually the scarlet fire gold moss. Du Xiaofu was astonished. Dugu Finchen was also a sea of baleful aura, and his sea of baleful aura was actually the terrifying scarlet fire gold moss. The scarlet fire gold moss was a terrifying thing that could burn all things. It was a legendary thing, and he was actually able to see it today. Chi La La, his sea of baleful aura and sorcerer god's power were activated. Although he was facing the joint attack of Du Xiaofu and heavenly demon Yelu Han, Dugu Finchen seemed to have an invisible power helping him. His strength was clearly similar to Du Xiaofu's, but at this moment, he was still able to delay the joint attack of Du Xiaofu and Yelu Han. Even Du Xiaofu and Yelu Han's attacks seemed to be within his expectations. In the beginning, Du Xiaofu didn't notice it, but after a few rounds, Du Xiaofu was already secretly shocked.
How strange.
Du Xiaofu was astonished. This Dugu Finchen seemed to be able to predict his and Yelu Han's attacks and would often dodge them in advance. It was as if he could secretly predict their attack patterns. I can't continue like this. I'll break through all techniques with force. In an instant, Du Xiaofu made a decision. No matter what kind of strange secret technique this Dugu Finchen had, he could still suppress him with his current cultivation. Sometimes, the simplest and most direct method was also the most effective method. Boom! Du Xiaofu secretly increased his strength. The sorcerer god's body filled the sky with talismans, and countless gods and devils chanted in the surroundings. It shook the heart and soul, and its aura was vast and surging. The ancient sorcerer god's power was like a series of mountain torrents. The dense and surging sorcerer god's power traversed the void, and rumbling sounds of wind and thunder resounded incessantly. Everywhere it passed, the space would explode. Du Xiaofu swept through the void like a sorcerer god descending, crushing towards Dugu Finchen. Every step he took caused the heaven and earth to tremble, and the universe to resonate. How can he be so strong? Dugu Finchen was shocked. He felt that he was being crushed. The sorcerer god's power was too terrifying. It was far more terrifying than the sorcerer god's power of the scholarly faction that he had come into contact with before. Even his sect's secret technique was suppressed. Haha, fight. However, Dugu Finchen still didn't retreat. He had comprehended many things in battle, and even made breakthroughs in battle. He was the fire cloud evil god. This kind of battle could force him into a dangerous situation, but it could also bring him great benefits. He longed for this kind of battle. Boom! Laughter resounded. Dugu Finchen laughed heartily. All kinds of attacks condensed like lava. Raging flames surged, and lava dripped down. The scarlet fire golden moss veined spirit pierced through the void like a fire dragon. Endless streams of lava poured down from the void, burning the void into nothingness. However, Yeluhan was definitely not Dugu Finchen. The sea of baleful aura turned into a whirlpool, entangling Dugu Finchen's vain spirit. The billowing baleful aura was able to resist the terrifying flames. Fight! Du Xiaofu shouted. The huge sorcerer god's body traversed the void. Accompanied by the ancient sorcerer god's power enveloping his body, it revealed an indescribable majesty and mystery. Bang bang! Du Xiaofu rampaged, and Dugu Finchen was forced to take a palm head-on. The sky exploded, and the sky rumbled as runes burst out resplendently. Dang dang! Dugu Finchen's body was forced back. His palm was numb, and that terrifying power was about to shatter his palm. Ha ha! His body was forced back, and his right palm was numb with intense pain. However, at this moment, Dugu Finchen sneered. A resplendent ray of light swept out from his left hand like a thunderbolt. He took the attack head-on, but he was also prepared. He had already buried his killing move. Chi La, that resplendent ray of light swept out like a lightning bolt. A terrifying dazzling spear light swept out. Blazing flames fell from the 9 heavens like lava, exuding a destructive aura. When such a killing move was launched, it was enough to kill a true peak domain realm expert. Chapter 1922. Dazzling spear light pierced through the void and pierced through the forehead of the sorcerer god, bursting with dazzling light. Asterisk crash. Asterisk in an instant, the huge sorcerer god's body crumbled. A dazzling long spear appeared, wrapped in rolling magma. Ancient runes filled the air with an ancient pressure. That terrifying aura had reached the level of a true saint artifact. It was a saint artifact. As the huge sorcerer god's body crumbled, Dugu Finchen's hair fluttered in the wind. His blazing eyes flickered with coldness as he sneered. But in an instant, Dugu Finchen's expression changed. His pupils suddenly shrank. Asterisk bang. Asterisk everything happened too quickly. At the same time, a fist rushed out from the void, bursting with dazzling runes. The ancient sorcerer god's power surged out and swept out in all directions, heavily hitting Dugu Finchen's back. Asterisk clang. Asterisk under such a bombardment, the ancient blazing armor on Dugu Finchen's back trembled. Magma spurted out and his body staggered forward, blood flowing out from his mouth. Asterisk bang bang bang. Asterisk but the attack didn't stop. Du Xiaofu's figure appeared and punched Dugu Finchen's back like a torrential storm. Asterisk piffed. Dugu Finchen's body was instantly sent flying. He spurted out dark red blood from his mouth. Scarlet Sky Spear. The instant his body staggered forward, Dugu Finchen let out a short cry. Blood splattered as the Saint Artifact, the Scarlet Sky Spear, once again swept towards Du Xiaofu like lightning. A blazing light cut through the void. Saint Artifact. Du Xiaofu's eyes lit up. He formed a seal with his hands, and the void in front of him suddenly distorted. He wanted to confine the Saint Artifact. Leave it to me. But at this moment, Yelu Han's voice rang out. Billowing baleful aura turned into several beams of light. Like dazzling dark red divine chains, they instantly entangled the Saint Artifact Scarlet Sky Spear. The sea of baleful aura was also entangled with Dugu Finchen's spirit. Good. Du Xiaofu immediately stared at Dugu Finchen with a smile. Dugu Finchen's expression was cold. He was already injured, and it was not light, but he was still arrogant. His battle spirit was even stronger as he pounced towards Du Xiaofu. Boom! The ancient flame armor on Du Xiaofu's body emitted a resplendent light, as if it was covered in blazing lava. However, the place on his back where Du Xiaofu had struck earlier was dimmed, and there were traces of cracks. Fight! Du Xiaofu had no other choice. His Meridian Soul and Saint Artifact were both entangled by Yelu Han. He wanted to force Du Nan to retreat, so he roared and pounced towards Du Xiaofu. Below them, the mountains exploded like volcanoes. The supreme power of 6 divine rings carried the momentum of heaven and earth. That resplendent light was like a beast tide. Come. Du Xiaofu couldn't ask for anything more. With a loud shout, the power of the sorcerer god around him emitted a deafening sound that made people's souls tremble. He directly punched towards Dugu Finchen's chest. Bang! This time, Dugu Finchen didn't dodge. A cruel and evil smile flashed in his eyes as he swept out. In this kind of situation, with the heavenly fiend Yelu Han present, Dugu Finchen knew that if this continued, it would be even more disadvantageous for him. Relying on the strength of his armor, he wanted to directly resist Du Xiaofu's punch. Du Xiaofu's punch directly landed on Dugu Finchen's chest. At the same time, Dugu Finchen's fist landed on Du Xiaofu's chest with a blazing aura that was like lava, emitting a rumbling sound. One punch for another, this was Dugu Finchen's choice. Since he was already in a dangerous situation, he needed to make a choice and perseverance. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to turn the tide. After the punch landed on Du Xiaofu's chest, Dugu Finchen smiled evilly. He was very confident in his armor. The reason why he was able to land a few punches on the younger generation was because of the armor's protection. At this moment, although the punch on Dugu Finchen's chest caused his blood to churn and his internal organs to tremble violently, he was still able to withstand it with the help of his armor. However, in just an instant, Dugu Finchen's evil smile stiffened. He felt that his opponent's body didn't seem to have much of a reaction. Instead, it was his own fist that felt like it was going to shatter. Not good. At the same time, a chill rose in Dugu Finchen's heart and his hair stood on end. A light burst out from the depths of Dugu Finchen's eyes, causing his soul to tremble. It was very fast, and it happened in the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint. As Dugu Finchen's fist landed on Du Xiaofu's chest, his volcano-like eyes suddenly became a little sluggish. Bang, 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 bang. At the same time, Du Xiaofu's fist, which had just landed on Dugu Finchen's chest, let out a series of muffled thunderclaps. There were 13 consecutive thunderclaps that resounded through the void. This was the Du family's oscillating fist. It had been improved by Du Xiaofu with the tyrant fist way that he had comprehended. At this moment, it was activated with the power of the sorcerer god. It contained the hidden force of the oscillating fist. 13 consecutive waves overlapped and landed heavily on Dugu Finchen's chest. Crack, crack. When this kind of power surged in, the protective armor on Dugu Finchen's chest cracked in an instant. The surrounding space was crushed by the impact. Puffed, puffed. Dugu Finchen's sluggishness only lasted for a moment. When he came back to his senses, his face had already frozen. His eyes were filled with shock, and blood spurted out from his mouth. At this moment, Only Dugu Finchen himself knew that his internal organs were on the verge of shattering. This kind of injury was too serious. Confined, Dugu Finchen was heavily injured. His vain spirit and Saint Tool were originally complementary to his body. At this moment, he was also greatly affected. Yelu Han immediately seized the opportunity to confine him. Continue. Du Xiaofu did not stop. The power of the sorcerer god surged and a series of violent attacks were launched. Dugu Finchen's defeat was unavoidable. He was completely crushed by Du Xiaofu and was forced to retreat in the void. The armor on his body dimmed and cracked. Bang, bang, bang. Yelu Han was not a soft-hearted person. She would not miss such an opportunity. She took the opportunity to launch several surging attacks from behind Dugu Finchen, causing him to spurt out blood again. Fire Cloud Evil God is only a... Du Xiaofu shouted. The power of the sorcerer god erupted and covered the sky. It collided with the panicked Dugu Finchen's palm. Dugu Finchen's body fell from the sky and shattered the mountain. Rumble. The mountain collapsed and the earth cracked. The mountain poured down. However, Du Xiaofu did not stop there. His purple hair fluttered and his divine aura was awe-inspiring. His body swooped down with a domineering force, and a palm print landed on the mountain where Dugu Finchen fell. Rumble. The earth shook and the mountain shook. The mountain from the top to the bottom suddenly exploded. In fact, all the mountains within a radius of 10,000 feet collapsed and shattered into dust amidst the rumbling of the earth quaking and swaying. For a moment, the surrounding sand and stones turned into a huge arc-shaped pit. Sand and stones flew, and dust filled the sky. The cracks were like an abyss. Such a palm was too terrifying. Even a Grand Domain Realm cultivator would be crushed by it. In the center of the pit, Dugu Finchen's body lay in a sorry state. The ancient flame armor on his body had already been shattered. His hair was messy and blood-stained. His face was as pale as ash. Du Xiaofu fell into the pit and lifted Dugu Finchen's body up. The broken ancient flame armor on Dugu Finchen's body also turned into talisman runes and disappeared on the surface of his body, revealing a tattered scarlet battle robe that was stained with blood. As Dugu Finchen was imprisoned, the Meridian Soul Scarlet Fire Golden Moss immediately dissipated in the void. The Saint artifact had a spirit, but its power was greatly reduced. It was completely imprisoned by Yelu Han. You lost, Du Xiaofu said with a faint smile as he looked at Dugu Finchen, who was lifted up and thrown to the side. The two of you working together is nothing. Haha, if you have the ability, then fight me one-on-one. Dugu Finchen was imprisoned, but his voice was not restrained. He looked at Du Xiaofu with a cold smile. The blood at the corner of his mouth added a trace of cruelty. I like to bully others with numbers. It's so tiring to fight one-on-one. Du Xiaofu said righteously. He did not care about Dugu Finchen's provocation and said, I'll give you one last chance. Ally with us or die. If you have the ability, then kill me and form an alliance with you. Dream on. Dugu Finchen was very arrogant. Although his defeat was inappropriate, if he lowered his head, then he would be Fire Cloud Evil God Dugu Finchen. You are a Nirvana Supremacy, Fire Cloud Evil God. I gave you face, so why don't you give me some face as well? Do you really think that I won't dare to kill you? My patience is not very good. Du Xiaofu looked at Dugu Finchen and said in a very serious manner, If you have the ability, then kill me. Dugu Finchen replied to Du Xiaofu. Sigh. Yelu Han sighed and looked at the trapped Dugu Finchen. He didn't feel happy in his heart. Instead, he felt a bit of heartache. He couldn't help but recall the time when he was in the Divine Domain and faced the Demon King, Du Xiaofu. His situation was similar to Dugu Finchen's at this moment. At that time, he was even more miserable. Bang! However, Yelu Han didn't feel that way because Du Xiaofu's fist had already landed on Dugu Finchen's body. The punch tore open Dugu Finchen's skin and flesh, revealing a bloody hole with dense white bones. Bang, bang, bang. Yelu Han sucked in a breath of cold air as he saw one of Dugu Finchen's feet being held in Du Xiaofu's hand. Dugu Finchen's feet were ruthlessly lashed on the ground like a whip. His mouth kept muttering, Isn't he just a lesser Nirvana Supremacy? He hasn't even reached the reincarnation Nirvana realm, I still don't put him in my eyes. The ground trembled violently. Dugu Finchen was smashed to his last gasp. In the end, he was thrown to the ground by Du Xiaofu once again. Yelu Han's heart jumped. He felt pain for Dugu Finchen. PFFF, PFFF, the pitiful Dugu Finchen, the dignified fire cloud evil god, was being ravaged like this. His body was cracked, and there were bloody holes all over his body. At this moment, Dugu Finchen's eyes were lifeless. It seemed like he still hadn't recovered from his shock. He couldn't believe that he would encounter such a situation. Those who are interested, please add little use public WeChat account, Ufone YF, and leave a message. Also, today's third update will be completed. Chapter 1923. Ha ha ha. He was in a sorry state and dripping with blood, but Dugu Finchen laughed. His laughter made people sigh. The corner of his mouth was mottled with blood as he said, "Is this all you've got? You don't even have the ability to kill me?" Du Xiaofu looked at Dugu Finchen as some ripples appeared in his eyes. He no longer paid any attention to Dugu Finchen and openly took all the items in the latter's chinkoan bag. The pitiful Dugu Finchen was imprisoned and could only watch as Du Xiaofu searched his body without restraint. He was powerless and could only watch with fire in his eyes. How should we deal with this guy? Yelu Han stepped forward, glancing at Dugu Finchen on the ground, and asked Du Xiaofu. "Just kill him," said Du Xiaofu. "Really kill him?" Yelu Han was stunned. So this guy really wanted to kill Dugu Finchen. Killing a few people was nothing to him, but this was the fire cloud evil god, an existence on the same level as him. Ha 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 ha, I've lost today, but it's not worth it to die in the hands of you too. Heavenly fiend Yelu Han, I'm ashamed to be on the same level as you. Dugu Finchen laughed. He had lost today, but he was unwilling. He loved to fight and rarely lost. But today, he was besieged by two people. He was unwilling to accept it. Du Xiaofu glanced at Dugu Finchen. He felt some admiration for this guy's arrogance. This was a true supreme being with the blood of a supreme being. Dugu Finchen, a loss is a loss. Even if it was a one-on-one fight, you wouldn't have any advantage. Why throw away your life? Since we're on the same level, it's not too late to form an alliance with us. Yelu Han also felt some admiration for Dugu Finchen. At least, he was much better than the cowardly Emotion Hao who joined Du Xiaofu. Brother Yelu, I heard that there are some spirit talisman masters that can refine a living person into a puppet. Their strength would increase instead of decreasing. You say that this fellow is a Nirvana stage martial artist after all, so the effect would definitely be better. What do you say we find a spirit talisman master to refine him into a puppet? Du Xiaofu suddenly looked at Yelu Han and said seriously, even if we can't find such a spirit talisman master, we can sell this guy to the Phoenix race or other large races as a battle servant. We will definitely obtain great benefits. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Yelu Han's heart couldn't help but tremble. Refining Nirvana transcendence into puppets and selling them to the Phoenix clan as battle servants. This was even worse than killing them. Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes as if he was deep in thought. He slowly said, "Maybe we can hold an auction and strip Dugu Finchen of his clothes. Maybe there will be women who like this. Whoever wants this guy, the highest bidder will get it." This is too immoral. Yelu Han looked at Du Xiaofu and began to roll his eyes. To the fire cloud evil god, this was an absolute humiliation. It was 10 times worse than certain death. "Bastard, you dare!" Dugu Finchen was thrown to the ground. After hearing Du Xiaofu's words, he immediately cursed. "Take a guess. You can't beat me anyway." Du Xiaofu simply ignored Dugu Finchen. Dugu Finchen's eyes were lifeless. He was thinking that if he was stripped naked by this bastard before him, then it would be better to kill him 10 times over. He was Dugu Finchen. To him, there were some things that were even more important than death. For example, dignity and pride. Dugu Finchen was truly afraid. His eyes began to flicker. "Brother Fu, Dugu Finchen is after all a Nirvana supremacy. Why don't we give him another chance?" Yelu Han's eyes shifted and secretly gave Du Xiaofu a meaningful glance. "Right now, he is not giving me a chance. If he was willing to ally with us from the beginning, then this wouldn't have happened." Du Xiaofu said knowingly. Yelu Han looked at Dugu Finchen, who had been thrown to the ground with a regretful expression. He softly said, "Brother Dugu, think carefully again. Ally with us, or be refined into a puppet, or become a battle servant. This is your final choice. It doesn't matter if you are ashamed to be on the same level as me, but I can tell you that Brother Finchen's temper is not very good. Not long ago, if Du Xiaojing hadn't arrived in time, the legalism sect's old sovereign Han Ke Feng would have almost died at his hands." Hearing this, Dugu Finchen's expression changed. He didn't expect that this guy would even dare to deal with the legalism's Han Ke Feng. He was afraid that this guy would really dare to auction him. The value of his body was truly immeasurable. He had no other choice now. He couldn't die even if he wanted to. If he didn't want to be refined into a puppet or sold as a battle servant, then he could only ally with these two. I will only ally with you. I won't listen to you. In addition, after leaving the heavenly devil battlefield, we will no longer have any relationship. Dugu Finchen looked at Yelu Han and said in a deep voice, "Otherwise, I will let you do whatever you want with me. But don't give me another chance, or I will absolutely not let you go. You should have said so earlier. Then you wouldn't have been beaten." Du Xiaofu immediately revealed a smile when he heard this. Several hand seals fell and directly released the seals on Dugu Finchen's body. The few Chinkuan pouches that he had just plundered from Dugu Finchen's body were also enthusiastically stuffed into Dugu Finchen's arms and said, "Since we are allies now, this is just a small token. Don't be so polite." "Why should I be polite? This is mine." Dugu Finchen's heart was burning with anger. He muttered in his heart, but he didn't say it out loud. This Chinkuan pouch was obviously his, but this guy was still boasting shamelessly. "Aren't you afraid that I won't keep my word?" But at the same time, Dugu Finchen was very surprised that this guy had actually released the seal on his body. "You are the fire cloud evil god, Dugu Finchen. Your words carry enormous weight, so I naturally believe you," Du Xiaofu said indifferently. Given this guy's arrogance, he naturally wouldn't go back on his word. Of course, Du Xiaofu wouldn't believe him without reservation. But even if this guy went back on his word, he could still suppress him with his current strength. This was also a kind of probing, so he had to secretly pay more attention. On the other hand, Dugu Finchen raised his eyebrows when he heard Du Xiaofu's words. He couldn't help but feel somewhat pleased. "This is yours. I'll return it to you." Seeing that Du Xiaofu had returned the Chinkuan pouch, Yelu Han had no choice but to return the saint weapon, Scarlet Sky Spear, to Dugu Finchen. It was a genuine saint weapon, so Yelu Han felt somewhat reluctant to part with it. "Come, take these pills. Don't blame me if I hit you too hard. Who asked you to be so strong? If I didn't use my full strength, I wouldn't have been able to do anything to you," Du Xiaofu said as he enthusiastically took out a lot of healing pills and handed them over to Dugu Finchen. Dugu Finchen was somewhat speechless. He was obviously beaten up, but now that this guy mentioned it, he felt somewhat happy in his heart. This guy changed his face too quickly. Yelu Han raised his eyebrows. The guy in front of him really changed his face quickly. He had a faint feeling of déjà vu in his heart. Chapter 1924. Dugu Finchen's injuries were not light. His body was cracked, and he needed time to heal. The commotion caused by the battle between the three of them must have attracted the attention of many living beings in the surroundings. Swoosh, swoosh. The three of them quickly left and entered the plains. They found a hidden place to allow the fire cloud evil god, Dugu Finchen, to recover a little. In the depths of the plains, there were many figures. Monstrous beasts roared and ferocious birds spread their wings. The heavenly Yu Mountain appeared at the end of the plains, attracting many living beings. Many beasts could be seen. There were 8-winged ferocious birds, and even 3-legged demonic bulls. All of them had powerful auras. At the end of the plains, there were many boulders that stood like small mountains. The outline of a vast mountain range floated in the air ahead. It didn't seem far, but it was actually separated by a vast space. The outline of the mountain range was vast and boundless. It was like a world had fallen and floated in the air. It felt like a mirage. However, even though it was separated by a vast space, one could still feel the spiritual energy of the world surging towards them. At the end of the plains, Where the boulders were closer to the outline of the mountain range, the boulders were in excellent positions. As a result, they were also occupied by some powerful forces and experts. Some loose cultivators and small forces could only occupy the surrounding areas. Although the Heavenly Devil battlefield was filled with opportunities, and there were many legendary special places, the appearance of the Heavenly U Mountain still attracted many living beings. The attraction of the legendary sacred medicine was enough to make any living being unable to resist its temptation. At the end of the plains, there was a clamor everywhere. The roars of beasts were endless. Many living beings had gathered there. They came from the 3 continents, Kyushu, the Beast region, and other places. They all belonged to different races and forces, so it was inevitable that there would be disputes. This was an ungoverned land, so it was very chaotic. Occasionally, there would be people shouting and fighting. It wasn't strange for there to be casualties. However, no one dared to affect the experts and great forces in front of them. Those people weren't people that anyone could provoke. As for those experts and major forces, they were all paying close attention to the front. Naturally, they wouldn't pay much attention to the fights and deaths as long as they didn't provoke them. Quite a number of figures were currently entrenched on a large boulder in front of them, all of them emitting powerful auras. Among them, there was a slender, middle-aged man with a fair complexion. The aura from his body was extremely powerful. If Du Xiaofu was here, he would definitely be able to recognize this person as the Sky Serpent clan member who had surrounded Domain Lord Zetian back then. His beast region cultivation was definitely one of the strongest in the entire Heavenly Devil battlefield. However, at that moment, the middle-aged man was standing next to several people on the huge rock. It was clear that those people had higher statuses than him. Demon King Du Xiaofu, is he alone? An old man in a loose black robe spoke from the boulder. His complexion was ruddy, and his figure was slightly plump. He had a pair of long, narrow, and deep eyes. A single glance from him would cause one's heart to palpitate. Second great uncle, Demon King Du Xiaofu, is alone. His strength is too strong and unfathomable. The middle-aged man with fair complexion was still pale, adding to his sickly appearance. He still had lingering fear when he recalled the Demon King Du Xiaofu's terrifying roar a few days ago. Just a single roar had injured his beast soul. If the other party hadn't held back, none of them would have been able to escape. Demon King Du Xiaofu, is this a show of force against my Sky Serpent clan? Hearing this, the black-robed old man's eyes darkened. Although the desolate country was like the sun in the Sky Serpent clan definitely had a deep foundation. Even the 9 great families, the dragons, and the phoenixes had to give them some face. That Demon King Du Xiaofu had injured the beast soul of a domain realm expert of the Sky Serpent clan. This wasn't giving the Sky Serpent clan too much face. Second great uncle, that Demon King Du Xiaofu, is too terrifying. He also has the Golden-Winged Rock clan, the Yinyang School, the School of Agriculture, and the School of Mo behind him. Let's just forget about it. The middle-aged man had lingering fear. He knew his second great uncle's temper. If it had been someone else, he would have begged his second great uncle to take revenge. However, the Demon King Du Xiaofu had shocked him too much. He was afraid of him and didn't want to provoke him anymore. The old man glanced at the fair-skinned middle-aged man and snorted, "Humph, he's just relying on the forces behind him. My Sky Serpent clan isn't something that anyone can look down on. If he meets me, I don't mind letting him know why my Sky Serpent clan has been able to stand tall for so long." Densely packed figures gathered on the plain. They were either in groups of 3 to 5 or occupied by great forces. It was rare to see someone alone. 3 young men in their 20s walked on the plain. Their auras were restrained. At this moment, they were inconspicuous among the densely packed creatures. No one would pay attention to them. These 3 people were Du Xiaofu, Yelu Han, and Dugu Fenshin. After Dugu Fenshin had recovered from his injuries, the 3 of them had rushed over. Is that the Heavenly U Mountain? The world spirit chi is so dense. In the distance, the outline of a vast mountain range floated in the air like a world had fallen. One could faintly make out the overlapping mountain peaks. Dense spiritual chi of the world assaulted Du Xiaofu's face, surprising him. There was actually such a place in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. The heavenly Yu mountain has appeared. However, it's not the time to enter yet. Everyone is still waiting. Heavenly Demon Yelu Han said. His eyes were fixed on the outline of the mountain range in the distance. Let's find a place to rest, Dugu Finchen said. His face was pale, and his hair was a little messy. He didn't have a smile on his face. He gave people a feeling that he was in a bad mood. Cheer up. If you act like this, others will think that Yalu brother and I have done something to you. Du Xiaofu looked at Dugu Finchen with a smile on his face. Dugu Finchen glared at Du Xiaofu's smiling face. He didn't say anything and directly walked forward. If you can't see me here, get lost. A black-scaled demonic bear, which was about 10 meters tall, stood upright. Its ferocious eyes glowed as Dugu Finchen walked right in front of it without any scruples. It was a sign of contempt toward the bear. The aura of a complete sovereign beast burst out as it shouted at Dugu Finchen with a thunderous voice. Bang! Dugu Finchen didn't even turn his head. He directly slapped the demon bear. An invisible blazing aura pierced through the space. The demon bear didn't even know what had happened. Its body directly exploded and turned into a bloody mist. Many creatures in the surroundings originally wanted to watch the show. However, when they saw this scene, they immediately trembled and retreated. That sickly red-clothed youth was actually a terrifying expert. His temper is not small. Du Xiaofu smiled faintly and immediately chased after him. Yelu Han was helpless. It seemed that Dugu Finchen was very sullen in his heart. Giant boulders stood in great numbers like a mountain peak, occupied by many experts and great forces. Some were paying close attention to the heavenly Yu mountain in front of them, while others were narrowing their eyes and resting with their eyes closed. No creature dared to provoke these experts and great forces. However, Dugu Finchen, Du Xiaofu, and Yelu Han came and looked around. Everyone is here. Du Xiaofu secretly moved his eyes. On the surrounding boulders, there were many familiar figures. The Taoist, Buddhist, Huang country, and the golden-winged great Peng bird race were all present. There were also many experts, many of whom were familiar faces. Lien Xingrong and the eye-catching 8 maidservants walked together with the famous experts. They were highly valued by them. Xiaojing. On the boulder at the very front, there was a graceful figure sitting cross-legged. Her hair hung down to her waist, but Du Xiaofu was able to recognize her with a single glance. She was his younger sister, Xiaojing. Long Ming and the others of the dragons were also walking together with the legalism group. That place is not bad. I want it. Du Xiaofu looked around. Dugu Finchen was looking at the boulder where the Taoist group was. He raised his eyebrows and wanted to snatch it. That's the Taoist group. Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes at Dugu Finchen. Was this guy deliberately looking for trouble? He actually wanted to snatch the Taoist group's territory. Not to mention that the Taoist group also had extraordinary experts. Just based on his relationship with the Taoist group, he could snatch anyone but the Taoist group's territory. What are you afraid? Dugu Finchen looked at Du Xiaofu with contempt and disdain. He was very unhappy. Although he agreed to form an alliance with these two, he was especially sullen along the way. I'm afraid. When have I ever climbed? Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes at Dugu Finchen. This guy was clearly looking for trouble. He said, but let me tell you, the 3 of us are in an alliance. That Du Xiaojing is here. If something happens, you will be the first to suffer. Du Xiaofu reminded Dugu Finchen. If they provoked the Taoist group at this time, it would not be good if they let others benefit from it in the end. The dragons and legalism were both here. Hearing this, Dugu Finchen looked around. Suddenly, he smiled at Du Xiaofu with ill intentions and said, I think that place is not bad. As soon as he finished speaking, Dugu Finchen's figure directly flashed out and charged towards a huge rock not far away. With a sweep of his crimson-robed sleeve, a gust of strong wind swept out and instantly blasted several figures away. Bang, bang, bang. Several people fell, their noses bruised and their faces swollen. Dugu Finchen also landed on the boulder and said indifferently, You can leave this place. An indifferent voice was emitted. At this moment, there were still quite a number of figures on the huge rock. Their expressions suddenly became gloomy. The narrow and deep eyes of a black-robed old man at the front were filled with a sharp chill. You're courting death. A voice filled with killing intent was heard. Almost at the same time, a figure rushed out. Profound chi surged, and the figure was like lightning. Accompanied by a thunderous finger seal, killing intent swept out and pointed at Dugu Finchen's forehead. This aura was very strong. It was a sealed domain realm expert of the beast race. Before the finger seal, the space directly collapsed, revealing a pitch-black spatial crack. It instantly reached Dugu Finchen's forehead. Chapter 1925. You're courting death. Such a voice was emitted from Dugu Finchen's mouth. His expression was indifferent, but his voice contained a domineering arrogance that could not be provoked. He shook his arm, and a similar finger shot out. A blazing aura penetrated the air and collided with the former's finger in an instant. The two fingerprints collided not far away from Dugu Finchen. Spatial ripples immediately surged as a pitch-black circle spread out from the point of contact. However, a terrifying force instantly swept out like a scarlet bolt of lightning. It carried a terrifying blazing aura as it instantly drilled into the fingertip of the sealed domain realm beast cultivator. A blood-curdling scream rang out. The sealed domain realm beast's finger was instantly vaporized, as if it had been dropped into molten lava. Then, starting from his fingertip, his palm and arm shattered inch by inch, turning into a pool of blood that evaporated in the scorching heat. Although Dugu Finchen's injuries were far from healed, he was still far from being a match for a sealed domain realm beast. Chila, a black-robed old man, appeared in front of him. A sharp blade of energy instantly severed the sealed domain realm beast's arm, then turned into a bloody mist in the blazing heat. The former's arm was severed, and he screamed in agony as blood flowed out. However, he took the opportunity to escape. His eyes were still trembling with fear. Swoosh swoosh Du Xiaofu and Yelu Han landed beside Dugu Finchen. They glanced around, their eyes flickering. The Heavenly Snake Clan. Du Xiaofu recognized the people on the boulder. When his sixth martial uncle, Domain Lord Zitian, had been surrounded, several members of the Heavenly Snake Clan had been present. The Heavenly Snake Clan was a powerful clan in the Beast region. Even the dragons, phoenixes, and other supreme beast clans had to give them some face. There had been a Heavenly Snake sect in the Central Plains, and Dugu Finchen had come into contact with them in the Savage Beast Mountain Range. Later on, he had fought with the Heavenly Snake sect. Some people's bloodline souls came from the Heavenly Snake Clan. Du Xiaofu wondered if the Sky Snake sect had anything to do with the current Sky Snake Clan. Such a commotion immediately alerted the experts and major forces on the surrounding boulders. Everyone looked over curiously before their expressions changed abruptly. It's them, Heavenly Fiend Yelu Han and Fu Xiaodu. The experts on the boulders and the people from the major forces exclaimed in surprise. This was especially so for the Buddhist, Taoist, famed scholars, legalism, and desolate country factions. Many of them were astonished. Two of the three had defeated the legalism Han Ke and the dragons Long Ming not long ago. That Yu Luo of the Heavenly Snake race probably doesn't know that he has run into a tough rock this time. Among the Taoists, an old man beside Su Yangzi had a bitter smile on his old face. He knew of the Heavenly Serpent race's elder, Yu Luo, but the mysterious Fu Xiaodu and Heavenly Fiend Yelu Han were definitely not to be trifled with. However, even though Yu Luo was very strong, he was still slightly inferior to Han Ke from the school of legalism. The guy beside Yelu Han and Fu Xiaodu seems to be the fire cloud evil god, Dugu Finchen. Su Yangzi's eyes rippled. He had seen Dugu Finchen in the Divine Dominion before. Every time he appeared, he would be covered in ancient magma-like armor. At this moment, the scarlet-clothed man who seemed to be in a sorry state and weak state seemed to be the terrifying existence Dugu Finchen, a battle maniac. The fire cloud evil god, Dugu Finchen, is another supreme being. Why is he with Yelu Han and Fu Xiaodu? The Taoist expressions changed when they heard Su Yangzi's words. Heavenly Fiend Yelu Han and Fire Cloud Evil God, Dugu Finchen. Why are they together? So that's Heavenly Fiend Yelu Han and Fire Cloud Evil God, Dugu Finchen? Who else is there? The other one is also an unfathomable expert. The people from the major forces on the boulders immediately recognized Fire Cloud Evil God, Dugu Finchen. Back in the Divine Dominion, the Fire Cloud Evil God's glory was so dazzling that people from the major forces had personally witnessed it. In the famous school and legalism groups, everyone looked at Yelu Han and Du Xiaofu with complicated expressions. However, they didn't look at them kindly, and their eyes were cold. Lien Qingrong looked at Du Xiaofu, Yelu Han, and Dugu Finchen. Her clear eyes also flashed with different fluctuations. At the same time, the Heavenly Snake Clan's Yuluo's expression changed. A disciple of the clan had told him the identities of the three young men in front of him. Yuluo also heard confirmation from the surrounding discussions. No wonder these three people dared to provoke the Heavenly Snake Clan. Among the three, there was a name that he had never heard of. However, Yuluo had long heard of Fire Cloud Evil God, Dugu Finchen, and Heavenly Fiend Yelu Han. They were two powerful supreme beings who had left behind their illustrious glory in the Divine Dominion. Dugu Finchen, Yelu Han, you don't put my Heavenly Snake Clan in your eyes, Yuluo said. Although he knew that Dugu Finchen and Yelu Han were supreme beings, the Heavenly Snake Clan wasn't a clan that anyone could provoke. Even if the dragons and phoenixes came, they wouldn't dare to treat the Heavenly Snake Clan like this. This was a blatant provocation to the Heavenly Snake Clan. Moreover, how could Yuluo not see that Dugu Finchen had yet to recover from his injuries? The Heavenly Fiend Yelu Han's name had been spread all over the Heavenly Devil battlefield and was being hunted down by the dragons, legalism, and school of vertical and horizontal. At this moment, there were people from the legalism and legalism here. What does it have to do with me? Yelu Han's expression was ugly as he cursed in his heart. It was obvious that Dugu Finchen was deliberately causing trouble. What is the Heavenly Snake Clan? I don't know. Dugu Finchen glanced at Yuluo. Brat, you are courting death. On the huge rock, Yuluo looked at Dugu Finchen with a cold gaze. These three young men were provoking the Heavenly Snake Clan and didn't put him, Yuluo, in their eyes. He had some misgivings about these three people, but he wasn't afraid of them. At this moment, there weren't any Saint Realm cultivators in the Heavenly Devil battlefield. There weren't many people who could make him afraid. Don't try to act old in front of me. Are you courting death? Dugu Finchen's gaze was indifferent. It was as if he did not place Yuluo of the Sky Serpent clan in his eyes at all. However, when his voice sounded, he retreated without leaving a trace and stood beside Du Xiaofu and Yelu Han. A sneer flashed across his eyes without leaving a trace. Boom! A terrifying cold aura swept out from Yuluo's body. It was majestic and shook the void. Mysterious runes soared into the sky as a cold shout was heard at the same time. Brat, you are courting death. Boom, boom, boom. Behind Yuluo, the auras of many experts from the Heavenly Snake Clan erupted at the same time. The surrounding void suddenly became distorted. Monstrous auras gushed out like volcanoes and swept across the land. When the experts from the Heavenly Snake Clan erupted, some of the living beings in the surroundings, especially the living beings from the Beast Clan, were stunned for a moment. Palpitations climbed up from the bottom of their hearts as shock surged from the bottom of their hearts like weeds. Chapter 1926. Although the Heavenly Serpent Clan could not be compared to Supreme Beast clans like the Dragons, Phoenixes, and Golden-Winged Great Rock clans, they were definitely a peak clan amongst the Beast clans. A few little snakes also dare to be so arrogant? Dugu Finchen did not seem to mind the matter. He looked at Yuluo and laughed mockingly. He did not seem to care at all. Yuluo's face gradually turned gloomy as he looked at Dugu Finchen's mocking smile. There were folds on his slender arms. His 5 fingers were bent and a heart-palpitating light flickered. It was as though black lightning was leaping and flickering on his 5 fingers, bringing about pitch-black spatial scars. Those who provoke my Heavenly Serpent Clan die. The killing intent in Yuluo's eyes was not concealed. Cold light shot out in all directions. The instant his feet stepped forward, his body strangely disappeared from the spot. Following the disappearance of Yuluo's body, many gazes on the surrounding huge rocks changed. They did not expect Yuluo to really attack. I'm afraid that Yuluo has kicked a steel plate. However, Many people from the various large factions secretly sighed. They had no choice but to pray for Yuluo. Chi. In an instant, a wave appeared in the space in front of the fire cloud evil god Dugu Finshin. Yuluo's figure appeared. His 5 fingers were bent, and a majestic dark and cold energy gathered between his 5 fingers. It transformed into a claw that swept out and instantly grabbed towards Dugu Finshin. Cracks appeared in the space in front of the claw. The space would shatter at any moment. Such a frightening dark and cold claw caused even Dugu Finshin to secretly frown. Even if he was at his peak, he would definitely not dare to be careless. You dare to touch my little brother. Old snake, you are asking for a beating. At the same time, a figure appeared in front of Dugu Finshin. His eyes narrowed as he cried out loudly, "You are seeking death." Yuluo let out a sharp cry. The claw that was originally grabbing towards Du Xiaofu was instantly accompanied by a pitch-black light circle and a frightening wind that tore through space. It cunningly and viciously grabbed towards the top of Du Xiaofu's head. Du Xiaofu shook his arm in front of everyone's eyes. A fist that was filled with light was suddenly thrown out. The punch was simple and direct. Then, it collided with Yuluo's claw imprint. Bang! Immediately, a muffled sound that made one's scalp go numb and ears rumbled. Frightening air waves and shattered secret symbols spread out like floodwaters from the point of contact between the fist and claw, causing spatial waves to surge along the way. Ding ding! The sharp and cold claw imprint came into contact with the fist and paused for a short moment. Then, Yuluo's body suddenly trembled, and he staggered back from the shock wave. Yuluo hurriedly took a few steps back, and the rock beneath his feet sank deeply. In the end, he stomped his foot on the ground, causing cracks to spread. Only then did he manage to stabilize himself. This scene caused the surrounding gazes to suddenly freeze. This was especially true for those who didn't know Du Xiaofu but knew Yuluo's strength. They were all secretly shocked. After stabilizing himself, Yuluo raised his head. Shock surfaced on his old face that was filled with dark, killing intent. Only then did his gaze carefully land on Du Xiaofu's body. He stared intently at Du Xiaofu and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" Following Yuluo's question, Du Xiaofu also became the focus of everyone present. What kind of existence was this young man who could make Yuluo retreat with a single strike? Didn't you hear clearly? You want to touch my little brother? Old snake, are you looking for a beating? Du Xiaofu didn't pay much attention to Yuluo as he said this. The fire cloud evil god Dugu Finshin is his little brother? However, such a sentence caused countless gazes in the surroundings to secretly ripple. Dugu Finshin was stunned. Soon after, he glared angrily at Du Xiaofu. Yuluo stared at Du Xiaofu with resentment. The intense pain in his palm made him realize that the mysterious purple-haired young man in front of him wasn't someone to be trifled with. However, the surrounding gazes were like thorns that pierced his heart. It was an absolute humiliation. He had cultivated for thousands of years, even longer than the legalisms Han Quebec. However, at this moment, he was being looked down upon by a junior. He was forced to retreat with a single strike. Not putting the Sky Snake clan in his eyes was also a slap to his face. This caused the chill in his heart to surge wildly. Brat, no matter who you are, you will pay the price today. Yuluo's eyes revealed an ominous glint. His gloomy voice caused many experts in the surroundings to feel a chill in their hearts. You are an old snake, and there are a few dragons beside you. If you can be stewed into a soup, it will definitely taste good. Du Xiaofu looked at Yuluo and sized him up seriously. He was like a wolf that had seen meat. As he spoke, he licked his lips and almost drooled. This fellow seems familiar. Su Yangzi, Hung Luan, Kong Sansi, and the rest felt a sense of familiarity when they saw the purple-haired man's drooling expression. Only the dragons, Long Ming, and the rest had their faces twitching violently. That Fu Xiaofu was openly looking down on the dragons and had been insulted for no reason. Tsk tisk. Yuluo's cold laughter was filled with unparalleled killing intent. His eyes revealed a sinister expression as he furiously said, "Brat, when you land in my hands, I will definitely make you suffer a fate worse than death." The instant his voice sounded, Yu Luo's figure disappeared once again. The instant his figure disappeared, a faint smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's calm face. He took half a step forward, clenched his hand into a fist, and directly punched towards the space to his left. Boom! This punch shattered the space ripples, and a large area of space caved in at lightning speed. Yu Luo's figure, who had disappeared in an instant, appeared within it with a shocked expression. However, at this moment, mysterious runes surged out from Yu Luo's body. His body expanded, and his aura suddenly erupted like a storm. Woo-woo! Accompanied by a sharp, ear-piercing hiss, Yu Luo transformed into a huge black, heavenly serpent within the distorted space. This wasn't an ordinary serpent. This was a supreme, heavenly serpent of the serpent tribe. Its aura was overwhelming, and a rumbling sound could be heard in the space. It was like a black dragon that was circling around, and its aura was terrifying. Terrifying energy spread out from the black, heavenly serpent's body. The surrounding space was completely distorted, and a long vacuum mark appeared. It faintly revealed a deep black light, as if the entire space would explode at any time. At this moment, the black, heavenly serpent's main region aura swept out without any concealment. That kind of suffocating pressure caused the hearts of the surrounding creatures to fly out of their wits. "Little bastard, you've angered me." Yu Luo's voice was frighteningly cold. His huge black dragon-like body was above Du Xiaofu's head. His sharp, cold, and ferocious eyes looked down at Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu didn't say anything, but his hand seals were forming. A mysterious aura spread out from his body, and his body expanded. An extremely shocking energy suddenly soared from his body, shaking one's soul and causing the sky to change color. In just an instant, Du Xiaofu's body transformed into the body of the sorcerer god. His entire body emitted a misty fog, and it was as if 1,000,000 mountains had descended from the sky. Buzz, buzz, dark clouds pressed down in the sky, and the wind and clouds surged in the void. The surging power of the sorcerer god seemed to have traversed through time and space from ancient times. This terrifying aura was clearly much more terrifying than the former. It caused everyone present to tremble, and they almost went limp. The sorcerer god's power of the scholarly faction. Boom! When faced with the power of the sorcerer god that Du Xiaofu had transformed into, Yu Luo's huge eyes suddenly changed color. However, at this moment, Du Xiaofu didn't stop at all. Instead, he took the initiative to attack. His huge body soared into the sky, and it was as if there were countless gods and devils chanting around the sorcerer god's body. He shook his arm and directly slapped towards Yu Luo's black, heavenly serpent body. Rumble! The power of the sorcerer god surged, and the runes that filled the sky surged like a torrential flood. The rumbling of wind and thunder didn't stop, and everywhere it passed, space exploded. Yu Luo's ferocious eyes changed color. Black light soared into the sky from his body, and his huge body soared into the sky like a dragon. Bang! The body of the sorcerer god collided with the black, heavenly serpent. Runes surged in the sky, and spatial ripples spread out in all directions like boiling water. The two separated upon contact, but Yu Luo's black, heavenly serpent body was directly slapped back. Boom! At the same time, there seemed to be tens of thousands of rays of light shooting out from Du Xiaofu's huge body. The mysterious runes surged like rays of light and shrouded Yu Luo's black, heavenly serpent body, causing the surrounding space to distort. "Old snake, how dare you behave so atrociously?" After these words were spoken, Du Xiaofu's body soared into the sky and landed a punch on Yu Luo's back. The surrounding space distorted, and the punch was as fast as lightning. Yu Luo couldn't dodge it at all. He could only release mysterious runes to cover the surface of his body to defend. "How dare you touch my little brother?" Bang! "Why didn't you leave when I asked you to?" Bang! "I even dared to beat up Han Ke for legalism. Why would I be afraid of the Heavenly Serpent Clan?" Bang! Loud roars sounded from the sorcerer god's body like thunder. Amidst the surging winds, the sorcerer god's power surged. Under Du Xiaofu's continuous punches, the mysterious runes on the surface of Yu Luo's body had already been shattered. Then, Du Xiaofu grabbed Yu Luo's huge tail and slammed him onto the ground. Rumble. The ground cracked, and the mountain rocks exploded. The earth shook, and dust flew everywhere. The surrounding living beings were frightened, and their legs turned to jelly as they were forced to retreat in fear of suffering and unexpected calamity. PFFF. The pitiful Uluo's body cracked, and he was dripping with blood. He spat out blood from his hideous mouth, which was stained with dust and blood. He was in an extremely sorry state. Chila. A claw mark swept out from Du Xiaofu's hand. Then, dozens of kilograms of heavenly serpent flesh and skin were ripped off from Uluo's huge body. The intense pain made Uluo scream in agony. I'm warning your heavenly serpent clan. Don't provoke me again. Otherwise, I'll stew you. Du Xiaofu grabbed Uluo's huge tail and swung it horizontally in the air. Chi-la-la. In an instant, Uluo's huge heavenly serpent body flew out like a meteorite. Fresh blood spurted from his mouth, and the remaining heavenly serpent clan members watched in despair as he ruthlessly smashed into the distant plains. Bang, bang, bang. The ground trembled, and cracks spread out. Countless rocks and dust surged into the sky. Chapter 1927. This scene happened very quickly and shocked everyone. Many people's eyes were about to fall out. Even Dugu Finchen's eyes twitched. He was indeed displeased, so he purposely wanted to cause trouble for Fu Xiaodu and Yelu Han. He couldn't provoke legalism, dragons, Taoism, and so on. So, Dugu Finchen took a step back and purposely provoked the Heavenly Snake Clan because he felt that there was an extraordinary expert overseeing the clan. However, Dugu Finchen didn't expect Uluo's cultivation to be so weak. He also didn't expect Fu Xiaodu to be so ruthless. He didn't put the Heavenly Snake Clan in his eyes at all. However, Dugu Finchen originally wanted to cause some trouble for Fu Xiaodu and Yelu Han. He didn't expect the outcome to be like this. Fu Xiaodu wasn't worried about the Heavenly Snake Clan at all. Du Xiaojing, who was sitting cross-legged in legalism's formation, opened his eyes at some point in time. He looked at the figure who had transformed into the sorcerer god's body. A ripple flashed through his calm eyes. Then, Du Xiaojing calmed down and closed his eyes again. It was as if everything around him had nothing to do with him. Where did that guy come from? At this moment, the scholarly disciples were deep in thought. That mysterious purple-haired youth had such a powerful sorcerer god's power. His origins were too mysterious. Du Xiaofu withdrew his sorcerer god's body and landed on the huge rock. The Heavenly Snake Clan experts who were originally on the huge rock had already retreated in shock when Uluo was flung away. They didn't dare to stay any longer. This old snake's meat should be pretty good. It's just that it smells a little fishy. I need to marinate it properly. Du Xiaofu carried the dozens of kilograms of meat that had been torn off Uluo's body. He started to set up a stove and took out many spices from his cosmos bag to marinate the meat. Then, he leisurely started a fire and started to roast the meat under the shocked gazes of the surrounding people. That guy is really going to eat Uluo's meat? Why do I feel like I've seen that guy before? Some people in the crowd discussed. The temperament and style of the purple-haired man who had ravaged Uluo made many people felt like they knew him. That guy's temper and character are a bit like our young patriarch. In the Desolate Countries lineup, a disciple of the Golden-Winged Rock clan spoke. He does seem to be the president. Within the Desolate Countries lineup, the mysterious Dragon King was also secretly interested. The aroma of the barbecued meat permeated the air, sizzling with the fragrance of oil. Some of the living beings in the surroundings were already secretly drooling. Not to mention the aroma. This was the meat of Uluo of the Heaven Snake race. Eating it would bring them great benefits. However, no one dared to show it. Uluo was in the distance, and his gaze was extremely dark and ugly. Uluo felt extremely aggrieved as he watched someone else lean on his flesh. He was afraid that anyone who dared to take a bite of his flesh would definitely bear a grudge against them. Come, little brother, your injuries haven't healed yet. Eat more meat to nourish yourself. When the aroma reached its peak, Du Xiaofu tore off half of the meat and gave it to Dugu Finchen. When did I become your little brother? Dugu Finchen glared at Du Xiaofu, and the corner of his mouth twitched. However, Dugu Finchin couldn't resist the aroma of the barbecued meat. He immediately took the meat. Eating Yuluo's meat would indeed be of great help to his injuries. Don't mind me. I just called you that casually. Du Xiaofu chuckled. Then, he shared the remaining meat with Yelu Han. He strode over, sat down, and began to eat heartily. Yelu Han didn't hold back either. The aroma had already stimulated his appetite. After taking a small bite, his eyes lit up, and he immediately began to eat heartily. Looking at the three people eating Yuluo's meat without any scruples, the surrounding experts' eyes began to ripple. Why is the fire cloud evil god, Dugu Finchin, also with those two fellows? With the three of them together, I'm afraid they will be strong competitors on the heavenly Yu Mountain. On the giant rock, people from various major factions whispered softly. After a while, Dugu Finchin no longer cared about anything. He sat down cross-legged and circulated his energy to regulate his breathing. There was a blazing aura fluctuation on his body, as if there was lava flowing on the surface of his body. It was extremely mystical. It's not time to completely enter the heavenly Yu Mountain. It seems like we still have to wait for a while, Yelu Han said as he looked at the vast mountain range in the distance. Then let's wait for a while longer, Du Xiaofu said as he swept his gaze across the lineup of famous experts not far away. The Heavenly Snake Clan is very strong. I heard that they have a Saint Stage expert. I'm afraid they won't let this matter go. Yelu Han reminded Du Xiaofu. He didn't expect Du Xiaofu to deliberately cause trouble. This Fu Xiaofu had even severely injured Yuluo of the Heavenly Snake Clan. With the Heavenly Snake Clan's character, they wouldn't let this matter go. The Heavenly Snake Clan better not provoke me again. Their Saint Stage experts can't enter yet. Otherwise, I'll directly roast a whole snake next time. A trace of coldness flashed across Du Xiaofu's face. He didn't have a good impression of the Heavenly Snake Clan. Looking at Du Xiaofu's flickering cold face, Yelu Han raised his eyebrows slightly. He swept his gaze across the lineup of legalism not far away and said, "The legalism and the dragons are still here. It's better to be careful. We'll deal with whatever comes our way. Anyway, we've already started a feud with them. If they want to make a move, they'll make a move no matter what," Du Xiaofu said with a smile. Then, he looked at the mountain range in front of him with a surprised face and said, "What kind of existence is this? Why is it so mysterious? Did someone do it on purpose? Or is it a natural wonder? This is the Heavenly Devil Battlefield. It's from the ancient times. At that time, there were countless geniuses and supreme experts. Many heroes fought for supremacy. This place is the Heavenly Devil Battlefield. Who knows how it was formed?" Yelu Han smiled bitterly. A deep smile appeared on his chiseled face and he said, "It's said that even if the Heavenly Yu Mountain completely appears, it's not easy to enter. There are mountains and rivers that are dangerous and cannot be climbed. The water is weak and can annihilate all living things. The mountains are thunder mountains that can destroy everything. It seems that it's not easy to enter. However, when the boat reaches the bridgehead, everything will be fine. I think there will be a way," Du Xiaofu said. After taking a deep breath, he released his consciousness and searched around. "Qingqing, are you here?" Du Xiaofu was worried. It was rumored that Dongli Qingqing was near the Heavenly Yu Mountain. However, there was no news until now. Du Xiaofu withdrew his consciousness and sat down cross-legged, closing his eyes to rest. Yelu Han glanced at Du Xiaofu and Dugu Finchin, who was recovering from his injuries. Then, he closed his eyes as well. The great battle had ended. The gazes of the surrounding people were somewhat unsatisfied. Then, everything began to calm down. Why hasn't it completely appeared yet? There's no chance now. Many experts want to force their way in. Some returned in a sorry state, while others died. It should be soon. It's too dangerous inside. It's not easy to enter the Heavenly Yu Mountain. Those big forces and top experts don't dare to barge in recklessly. They don't dare to lower their guard. Although the Heavenly Yu Mountain has appeared, there are still space seals around it that haven't dissipated. Its power can't be underestimated. Some people whispered in the crowd. Du Xiaofu was resting with his eyes closed. However, these discussions couldn't escape his sharp soul perception. He became more and more worried. Some had already entered the Heavenly Yu Mountain, Some had fled in a sorry state, and some had been completely buried. Dongli and Qing Qing's whereabouts were unknown, and it was unknown if they had entered the mountain. This made Du Xiaofu worried. Time passed slowly. The news of the Heavenly Yu Mountain had attracted many experts. In addition to those big forces, Du Xiaofu also sensed many extremely obscure and vast auras. Once the Heavenly Yu Mountain completely appeared, there would be an intense battle. There were also legalism, dragons, and famous people. Therefore, Du Xiaofu didn't dare to be careless. He needed to maintain his peak condition. He closed his eyes and breathed. Time passed quietly. 2 days later, more and more living beings gathered on this plain. The clamor reached the heavens, and it was extremely noisy. However, no one dared to fight for the position near the giant rock in front of them. The experts of the big forces, Kong Sansi, Du Xiaoqing, Heng Luan, Su Yangzi, Lian Qingrong, Jialo Jueyu, Du Xiaoqing, Mo Tianxiao, and the others, all closed their eyes and adjusted their breathing. They were waiting for the Heavenly Yu Mountain to completely appear. As time passed, the outline of the vast mountain range that looked like a world had fallen completely appeared in the void. It was as if it was parallel to the void. The mirage-like illusion disappeared completely and became more and more real. Whoosh whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of wind breaking came from behind the void. There were auras that didn't converge much and filled the air, solidifying the void. Such an aura was incomparably sharp. It moved the experts of the big forces on the giant rock. They immediately opened their eyes and looked back. Many figures appeared in the void. They were like rainbows that broke through the sky and appeared on the plain like lightning. Boom! The space trembled invisibly. The light faded, and a large group of figures appeared. The one in the lead was a middle-aged man with a wretched face. However, he had a natural charm. 18 invisible energy auras fluctuated around him. The 18 tall men were like 18 javelins in the sky. Any one of them gave people the feeling of a ferocious beast. They were sharp, and bloodthirsty. There were also many other figures. Among them, there was no lack of handsome young figures. The desolate country's 18 heavenly generals, the sacred array child Jinqingchun. Someone in the crowd exclaimed. When such a group of people suddenly appeared, they were immediately stunned. Among the groups of legalism, famed scholars, and dragons, some of them had ugly expressions. They immediately became gloomy. The Buddhists didn't look too good either, especially Heng Luan and the others. When they were in front of the Supreme Tomb, the Buddhists' 18 Reapers formation was broken by the 18 Heavenly Beast Holy Slaughter formation of the 18 Heavenly Generals. They're here too. Du Xiaofu smiled. He met his big brother Jinqingchun and Yi Piaoling on the way. Other than them, there was also Wei Jiejia of the Wei family and some disciples of the desolate country. Chapter 1928. Brother Qingchun, Yi Piaoling, Qingguyu, sure too, we're here. In the formation of the desolate country and the golden-winged rock, Du Xiaoqing was pleasantly surprised when she saw the group of figures in the sky. Jinqingchun, Yi Piaoling, and the others looked down and landed with smiles on their faces. Rumble. Suddenly, the air trembled, and the silhouette of the mountain range in front of them emitted a shocking aura. Rumble. There were distortions in the air, and there were also surging spiritual qi gushing over like waves. The wave-like spirit energy swept over and spread in the air. The eyes of the people on the plain quietly turned red, and even their breathing became hurried. On the huge rock, the slightly closed eyes suddenly opened. Waves of aura fluctuated, and light overflowed. Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes and looked at the distorted space. The vast silhouette of the mountain range fell to the ground as if it had fallen from the 9 heavens, bringing with it surging spirit energy and spatial fluctuations. It was like a suppressed volcano that was crazily erupting. Boom! The space trembled like the sound of the heavens. The silhouette of the mountain range completely fell at the end of the plain. It was lush green, with towering trees stretching into the sky. Clouds and mist drifted, and the spirit energy was oppressive. It was as if the door to a new world had suddenly opened. The Heavenly Yu Mountain has completely appeared. The moment the vast mountain range completely fell, The eyes of the people on the plain were already red. After waiting for so long, the heavenly U mountain had finally completely appeared. Go in quickly. Low and greedy voices came out from their throats. Many people and beasts immediately rushed towards the mountain range. Swoosh, swoosh. Many figures soared into the sky, their auras erupting. There were beasts that covered the sky, and it was extremely shocking. However, Du Xiaofu, Dugu Finchen, who had recovered a lot, and Yelu Han did not move. The disciples of the great forces on the huge rock also did not move. They were still nervously watching. Chi-la-la, save me, save me. Ah, suddenly, the earth-shattering figures soared into the sky. Before they even got close to the mountain range, several figures fell from the sky. Some ferocious birds flapped their wings and even shattered space, but they still fell from the sky involuntarily. Then, they let out miserable cries. Retreat quickly. One figure after another retreated in panic. Some of them were already too late, falling down one after another. Those who were stronger and those who were at the back fled in a sorry state. This scene shocked everyone, but it also allowed the living beings who were watching to breathe a sigh of relief. They looked at the numerous living beings who were fleeing pathetically at the edge of the mountain range and heard countless screams and wails. They secretly rejoiced. A bunch of people who overestimate themselves. They are greedy but don't have the strength to back it up. They deserve to be unlucky. Dugu Finchen said indifferently. His body immediately rushed forward after his voice sounded. Let's go and take a look. Yelu Han waved his hand. His body turned into a rainbow, filled with killing intent as he flew towards the mountain range in front of him. At the same time, the experts on the surrounding boulders and the people from the major forces also moved. Their figures turned into afterimages as they flew towards the mountain range. Du Xiaofu's eyes slightly raised as he followed closely behind Yelu Han and Dugu Finchen. Numerous figures instantly appeared in the sky before the mountain range. Only then did they realize that there was a vast river in front of the mountain range. The giant river was no less than 10,000 feet wide. At the end of the river was a vast mountain range. The huge silhouette of the mountain range was like a monstrous ancient beast that was hibernating, causing people to feel a chill in their hearts. Du Xiaofu, Dugu Finchen, and Yelu Han also stopped in the sky with the others. Their faces were secretly shocked. At this moment, the vast river was filled with white bones. It looked like a giant river made of bones. All kinds of huge beast bones and human skeletons floated on the river, rippling slightly, but not flowing. Quite a few creatures had fallen into the river, and at this moment, they seemed to have turned into white bones in an instant. The giant river of bones had obviously always existed. Although there were many creatures that had died, it was definitely not enough to fill up the river. The sea of bones was lifeless, giving people a bone-chilling feeling just by looking at it. This is the weak water. It can annihilate all life. It can't be crossed. Looking at the giant river of bones, Yelu Han spoke. His expression also changed. This vast river of bones was densely packed with white bones. It was unknown how many creatures had died since ancient times. Coo! Suddenly, a cry resounded. A huge feathered bird flapped its wings and soared into the sky. Its entire body was covered in dazzling light as if it was wrapped in fog. This feathered bird was an expert that had reached the great domain realm. It flapped its wings and distorted the void. It wanted to cross the weak waterbone river. However, just as the feathered bird crossed the weak waterbone river, its body suddenly trembled violently as if it had encountered something terrifying. Its fierce pupils shrank and its body began to fall. Coo! The feathered bird roared loudly. Its great domain realm aura erupted, shattering the void. However, it was useless. The weak water didn't even ripple, and it fell directly. No. But in the end, the feathered bird despaired. Its voice was filled with sorrow and despair. Its body fell into the weak waterbone river, finally causing the water to ripple. The weak waterbone river submerged the feathered bird. Then, a huge skeleton emerged. There wasn't a trace of flesh. The white bones were eerie and emitted a terrifying light. A great domain realm beast race expert was instantly killed, and he was reduced to a pile of white bones just like that. Countless creatures in the surroundings were shocked, their hair standing on end. It's really terrifying. Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes and his heart was in turmoil. The weak water-bone river was too strange. Du Xiaofu was also increasingly worried about Dongli Qingqing. If Dongli Qingqing had already entered the Heavenly Yu Mountain, could she cross the weak water-bone river? While Du Xiaofu was deep in thought, suddenly, a roc's cry pierced through the clouds and cracked rocks, stirring the hearts of people. Many golden-winged rocks suddenly appeared in mid-air. They flapped their wings and covered the sky. Golden light shone brightly. Waves of ferocious aura spread out, blocking the Xian Qi in one's body and making one's soul tremble. Those golden-winged rocks occupied the void, making people feel fearful and overwhelmed with emotions. Let's go. A golden-winged rocks flew across the sky, carrying many desolate nation disciples on their backs. They flapped their wings and crossed, causing ripples in the weak water. Under countless astonished gazes, the golden-winged rocks crossed the Ruo Shui Bone River one after another. The terrifying weak water didn't seem to have much effect on them. Oh my God! The surrounding creatures trembled and were inexplicably shocked. The golden-winged rocks could cross the weak water-bone river. Chapter 1929. The great Pong is with the wind. The weak water is unbreakable. How terrifying! Yelu Han's eyes flickered as he watched the great golden-winged rocks flying across the Ruo Shui Bone River. Rumble. At the same time, figures soared into the sky one after another behind the golden-winged rock. They separated in the void, and their auras were invisibly connected. These were the 18 celestial guards. Their figures were scattered, but they were secretly connected. They formed hand seals and gathered their auras. Roar. At the same time, the roars of beasts resounded like thunder. The 18 celestial guards shone brightly. Runes flickered and illuminated the sky. In an instant, they turned into the golden-winged Great Pong, Xinyun Scarlet Flood Dragon, Ancient Celestial Fox, Primordial Huado, Primordial Soaring Serpent, Swan and Eye, Xieji, and many other terrifying beasts. The 18 strange beast phantoms occupied the void and roared ferociously. Led by the golden-winged rock phantoms that enveloped Yi Piaoling, they covered the sky and appeared in the sky as if they were blotting out the sun. Rumble. Supreme power appeared on Yi Piaoling's body, causing heavenly music and a halo of divine fire to appear in the sky. This scene caused the surrounding people to gasp. The World Society's 18 heavenly guards were so terrifying. Go! The 18 celestial guards circled in the void and led the remaining Huang Nation and Wei family disciples to cross the weak water-bone river. Go! Sacred Array Child Zhen Qingchun threw out a small pagoda in his hand. In an instant, a murderous aura filled the sky. It became several zhang tall and flew into the sky, controlling the pagoda. Rumble. With the sound of heavenly music, Du Xiaojing flew into the sky from the legalism formation. 10 divine rings appeared in the sky, enveloping the legalism disciples as they crossed the weak water-bone river. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Almost at the same time, Kong Sansi, Su Yangzi, Hui Yuan, Heng Luan, Lian Qingrong, and many other supreme beings activated their supreme being powers. The heavenly sound shook the heavens, and the machines carried the people around them across the Ruoshui Bone River. Amitabha. In the Buddhist sect, besides Heng Luan, an old monk threw out a string of Buddhist beads. It was a mysterious sacred artifact. It transformed into a Buddha, and the sound of Sanskrit was faint. It was as if it was delivering the salvation of all living creatures as they crossed the weak water-bone river. Roar. Dragons. Dragons. Dragon's might swept dragon's might. Dragon's disciples crossed the weak water-bone river. Dragons, dragons. Dragons, dragon. Dragons, dragons, dragon, 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 dragon. Dragons, dragons. Dragon, dragon. The Dragon Nation dragon, dragon, cross dragon is dragon, dragon. That's the blood of a true dragon. A true dragon soars into the clouds, untouchable by weak waters. Yelu Han raised his eyebrows. Weak river, crossing weak water, weak dragon above the void. Seeing that the various major forces were fighting to cross, There were also various forces activating their secret techniques and setting up great formations to cross. Some experts. Were they? Creatures, some god beings. Great beings as creatures. In an instant, the competition erupted once more. Numerous figures soared through the sky while various secret techniques, formations, treasures, and mysterious techniques were revealed. Symbols. Light spirits, bright. The weak water-bone river whistled, and huge waves appeared. Some people were on the verge of collapsing. Their formations were about to break, but in the end, they were drowned by the weak water-bone river and turned into white bones. Some Supreme's treasures were annihilated. Their bodies fell, unable to escape the weak water-bone river. But there were also some who managed to cross the river and reach the shore. 3,000 weak water-bone river, all living creatures sink. Supremes with extraordinary physiques can cross the weak water-bone river. Dugu Finshin waved his sleeve. 6 divine rings appeared in the sky, wrapped in supreme power. He turned around and rolled his eyes at Du Xiaofu. Then, he crossed the weak water-bone river and left. Yelu Han looked at Du Xiaofu beside him, and his eyes rolled. I'll take my leave first. Yelu Han's divine rings appeared in the sky. He also activated his supreme power and left with Dugu Finshin. Hey, you two, bring me along. Du Xiaofu shouted behind them. However, Dugu Finshin and Yelu Han ignored Du Xiaofu, as if they had discussed this beforehand. These two bastards. Du Xiaofu could see that although the weak water-bone river was terrifying, there were methods and secret techniques to cross it. However, the consumption was huge. The most special one was the Supremes. As Supremes, they couldn't cross the weak water-bone river. Dugu Finshin and Yelu Han left. Du Xiaofu knew that these two fellows did it on purpose. They wanted to see if he was also a supreme being. However, if he exposed his supreme power, his identity would be exposed. The golden-winged great pong bird could cross the weak water-bone river, but his identity would be exposed soon. Du Xiaofu smiled wryly. However, he was less worried about Dongli Qingqing. Dongli Qingqing was also a Supremes. If she entered the Heavenly Yu Mountain ahead of time, she would be able to cross the weak water-bone river. Yelu Han and Dugu Finshin landed on a rock and turned their heads to look at Du Xiaofu on the other side of the river. With their cultivation bases, they could clearly see Du Xiaofu hovering in the air from 10,000 feet away. Their eyes were fixed on Du Xiaofu. They didn't bring Du Xiaofu to cross the weak water-bone river because they wanted to see if Du Xiaofu's true identity was also a Supremes. At this moment, there were many people who had the same thought as Yelu Han and Dugu Finshin. There were many people who were staring at Du Xiaofu on the other side of the river. Everyone could see that the mysterious purple-haired man didn't use his full strength against Han Ke Feng. His strength was unfathomable. Now that he wanted to cross the weak water-bone river, they didn't know what kind of method he would use. Miserable shrieks and howls continued to resound. There were living beings who tried to cross the weak water-bone river. It's somewhat familiar. Du Xiaofu looked at the Ruo Shui bone river that was surging with huge waves. His expression was a little different. He felt that the waves of the Ruo Shui bone river were somewhat familiar. Is it really related? Let's give it a try. Slightly gritting his teeth, Du Xiaofu decided to give it a try. If it really didn't work, he would have no choice but to reveal some of his identity. Du Xiaofu soared into the sky. His figure flashed, like a falling leaf in the breeze, gently landing on the weak water-bone river. Under many attentive gazes, Du Xiaofu stepped on the Ruo Shui, his figure drifting unpredictably. Amidst the surging waves of the Ruo Shui and the white bones, he traversed like a deity. The weak water-bone river was rolling, but it seemed to be deliberately carried under Du Xiaofu's feet, allowing his figure to float past. With a light tap of his feet, Du Xiaofu was like a swift swallow crossing the river. The weak water that could annihilate all living things was capable of devouring everything. However, for some unknown reason, it did not affect Du Xiaofu at all. It was just like an ordinary river water, allowing him to remain safe and sound, while his spirit was refreshed. Many people were dumbfounded. Even Dugu Finshin and Yelu Han were dumbfounded. They originally wanted to test if that guy's true identity was also a supreme being. Who would have thought that he could cross the weak water-bone river so easily? It seemed like he was crossing the river lightly, but the shock it caused was even more shocking than when all the supreme beings fought to cross the river. The more unfathomable it was, the more shocking it was. Chapter 1930. However, at this moment, no one knew that Du Xiaofu was also astonished. Even Du Xiaofu didn't expect that he would be able to cross the weak water as if nothing existed when he used the wavy carefree steps. Du Xiaofu felt a sense of familiarity from the ripples on the weak water-bone river. It contained a mysterious mystery. Observing carefully, Du Xiaofu faintly felt that the ripples seemed to be the same as Dongli Qingqing's wavy carefree steps. At first, Du Xiaofu wasn't sure, but the more he observed, the more he felt that there was a great connection between the two. Therefore, Du Xiaofu took the risk and tried it. He didn't expect that it would be so. Crossing the river with the wavy carefree steps was actually not affected by the weak water. The wavy carefree steps was not too obvious, and Du Xiaofu was also using it in an extremely secretive manner, afraid that someone would discover his identity. Du Xiaofu's figure was like a piece of duckweed as he lightly landed beside Du Gufinshan and Yelu Han. After calmly landing, Du Xiaofu calmly glanced at Du Gufinshan and Yelu Han. His eyes carried a kind of light ridicule as he said, "Is a supreme being so amazing? It's just crossing a river. What's the point of making such a big commotion?" As his voice fell, Du Xiaofu ignored the shocked gazes around him and looked forward. Not far ahead, many gazes were filled with shock. The continuous cliffs and tall mountains blocking the way were like a natural moat in front of everyone. The mountains were 10,000 zhang tall, and they couldn't see the peak even if they raised their heads. Facing the natural moat-like cliffs and tall mountains, even the gigantic golden-winged great pang and giant dragon seemed incomparably small. All the creatures looked at the towering cliffs and tall mountains before them, and all of them felt incomparably small. Even the top experts of the various large factions secretly sucked in a breath of cold air at this moment, only regaining their senses after a while. What kind of place is this? Du Xiaofu's heart trembled, and his face was filled with shock. What kind of existence was this heavenly Yu mountain? It was so shocking. All of the creatures were waiting. After the lesson of the Ruo Shui Bone River, no one was stupid enough to want to be the leader. Whoosh whoosh, however, someone moved. After pausing for a moment, Du Xiaojing from legalism had already soared into the air and climbed over the precipice. Behind him were the disciples of legalism. Rumble. Suddenly, the sound of thunder came from above the precipice. Streaks of dazzling white electric arcs poured down like waterfalls from the deep sky. They condensed into dazzling and destructive thunderbolts that rushed towards Du Xiaojing and the others. Zila-la. Winds and clouds surged, and the sky changed color. A destructive aura reverberated through the area, causing the expressions of the strongest experts present to change, and their hairs to stand on end. Du Xiaojing was fearless. Her beautiful figure soared into the sky, and her body was covered by purple talisman runes. A purple thunderbolt suddenly spread out from her graceful body, covering the legalism disciples. The terrifying destructive thunderbolt fell on the purple thunderbolt around Du Xiaojing's body. It was like water falling on the surface of a lake, causing ripples, but then it disappeared. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Du Xiaojing protected the legalism disciples and directly climbed to the top. So this is the Thunder Mountain? It's just ordinary. Du Xiaofu spoke, and with a shake of his long sleeve, he ignored Du Gufinshan and Yelu Han beside him and soared into the sky, directly climbing up the mountain. Rumble. Above the precipice, the torrential electric arcs seemed to have been stimulated, and suddenly, the sound of thunder rumbled incessantly. The thunderbolts converged and rushed towards Du Xiaofu from all directions. The destructive power of the terrifying thunderbolts made one's hair stand on end. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, Du Xiaofu allowed the destructive thunderbolts to fall on his body, and his entire body seemed to be covered by lightning. The destructive electric arcs hit Du Xiaofu's body, but he was safe and sound, and directly climbed to the top. Who the hell is that guy? He's not afraid of the Thunder Mountain, and he's not afraid of the Thunder Mountain. Yelu Han and Dugu Finshin were completely dumbfounded, and their faces were full of astonishment. Many people in the surroundings were looking at Du Xiaofu's figure, and their astonishment was no less than Dugu Finshin and Yelu Han's. The mysterious purple-haired man's method of climbing the mountain was undoubtedly more shocking than Du Xiaojing's. Ewu, rumble. As the legalism disciples and Du Xiaofu climbed the mountain, the experts of the major forces moved again and used all kinds of methods to resist the destructive thunderbolts. The golden-winged great Peng flapped its wings, strange beasts soared through the sky, and the true dragon's shadow coiled in the firmament. The Buddha's shadow was in the sky, and a baleful aura filled the void, and scarlet flames covered the sky. Du Xiaofu climbed the mountain and rampaged through the thunderbolts. Du Xiaofu might be a little afraid of the weak waterbone river, but Du Xiaofu was not afraid of the power of thunderbolts. Not to mention the thunder martial vein. Even the immortal Xin body in his body was not afraid of the power of thunderbolts. Although he had used the divine art of disguise to change his appearance and figure, the immortal Xin body remained unchanged. Du Xiaofu's body had been broken by the purple-gold profound lightning, so how could he be afraid of the power of thunderbolts? The thunderbolts poured into his body, but they did not cause any substantial effect on Du Xiaofu's body. What a strange thunderbolt! However, the destructive power of thunderbolts made Du Xiaofu feel strange. When the lightning entered his body, although it was unable to attack his physical body, it was able to cause his vitality to drain away. Streaks of thunderbolts gushed into his body like greedy snakes, devouring his life force. Du Xiaofu secretly activated the power of the thunder martial vein in his body, and only then did he eliminate the destructive power of the thunderbolts. Fortunately, the thunderbolts did not seem to have any intelligence. Otherwise, the result would make Du Xiaofu worried. If the thunderbolts had intelligence, even if he had the thunder martial vein and the immortal Xin body, he would definitely suffer. In the depths of the precipice, like the firmament, Du Xiaofu climbed to the top of the mountain in torrents of thunderbolts. Behind Du Xiaofu, many figures followed in roaring thunderbolts. It was shocking. Walala! Finally, Du Xiaofu reached the top. The dazzling destructive lightning arc above his head disappeared, and a dazzling light and spiritual qi of heaven and earth swept over. Du Xiaofu squinted his eyes and stepped into the void. The Xin qi in his body secretly circulated, guarding against any sudden danger. This, however, when he saw what was in front of him, Du Xiaofu could not help but gasp. After crossing the precipice, Thunder Mountain, there was no danger in front of him, but a boundless mountain range and an ancient forest. Looking down, the mountains in front of him were under his feet. Multicolored lights soared into the sky, and spiritual herbs covered the ground between the towering trees. The air was full of spiritual qi of heaven and earth. In comparison, the sealed treasure lands of the 9 great families were nothing. They could not be compared to this vast mountain range. Chapter 1931. If one cultivated in such a place for a long time, they would be able to obtain great benefits. Spirit herbs could be found everywhere in this ancient forest. There was no lack of rare spirit herbs in the outside world, and there were even many treasured herbs. Du Xiaofu could be considered as someone with extraordinary willpower, but when he looked at the spirit herbs that covered the ancient forest, he couldn't help but inwardly gasp. There were so many spirit herbs, and there were even treasured herbs among them. If they fell into the hands of any force, it would be enough to dominate the world. Such a temptation was something that no force in the world could resist. Heavens, there are so many spirit herbs. The heavenly Yu Mountain is really as the legends say. They are rich. Figures appeared one after another behind Du Xiaofu. They were all experts from various forces. Some of them were protecting the disciples of their clans as they ascended to the peak. Looking at everything in front of them, their eyes were red. Oh, woo! Some demonic beast experts roared and swooped down, entering the forest and directly swallowing the spirit herbs. Their mouths were full of multicolored light as energy gushed out. Swoosh, swoosh. Above the void, Du Xiaojing, who was the first to arrive, turned her head and swept her gaze across the people behind her. Her beautiful eyes intentionally swept past Du Xiaofu. Then, with a wave of her slender hand, she led the legalism disciples into the depths of the mountain range, not stopping to look at the extraordinary spirit herbs that covered the mountain range. Swoosh, swoosh. Above the void, the various forces also flew into the depths of the mountain range. Although the spirit herbs that covered the ground were invaluable, it wasn't their purpose for coming here this time. Finding the sacred herbs is more important. Yelu Han also appeared behind Du Xiaofu. Looking at the spirit herbs that covered the mountain range, his eyes rippled, but he wasn't too moved. The most attractive thing in the heavenly Yu Mountain was the legendary sacred herbs. Although the spirit herbs that covered the mountain range were invaluable, compared to the sacred herbs, they were not enough. The sacred herbs were the true purpose of the various forces and experts coming to the heavenly Yu Mountain this time. It was a temptation that no cultivator could resist. Let's go. As soon as Dugu Finchin said this, he had already flown forward, not wanting to let others have the opportunity to obtain the sacred herbs. What a pity! Du Xiaofu's face was full of heartache. At this moment, he really didn't have the time to pick the spiritual herbs on the ground. Not to mention the saintly herbs, Dongli Qingqing's whereabouts were still unknown. Perhaps she had already entered the heavenly Yu Mountain ahead of time. This made Du Xiaofu worried. Wait for me, you too. Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes and chased after Dugu Finchin and Yelu Han with a smile on his face. The outline of the mountain range was incomparably rich in spiritual qi of heaven and earth. A faint mist covered the forest, flowing with the wind. The mountain range was filled with strange flowers and herbs. Occasionally, there would be strange birds and birds. Everything was like a fairyland, making people feel as if they were in a paradise, forgetting that they were in the terrifying heavenly devil battlefield. Awoo! In the forest, there were also the roars of beasts. In such a place filled with spiritual qi of heaven and earth, there were also many demonic beasts, including many powerful demonic beasts. In a mountain range, Yelu Han said to Du Xiaofu, "This place has already formed its own world. In such a place filled with spiritual qi of heaven and earth, there are countless spiritual herbs. Some of the demonic beasts must be very powerful. We have to be careful." Du Xiaofu stuffed a large amount of spiritual herbs into his mouth and wolfed them down. They were all extraordinary spiritual herbs, more than enough to refine venerable grade pills. They were all picked in the vicinity. There were also many spiritual herbs that Du Xiaofu directly put into his spatial pouch, afraid that Dugu Finchin and Yelu Han would snatch them away. Not bad. It's better to be careful. Hearing Yelu Han's words, Du Xiaofu nodded. His mouth was still filled with spiritual herbs. Du Xiaofu naturally didn't dare to be careless about the uniqueness of this heavenly Yu Mountain. In such a place filled with spiritual herbs and spiritual qi of heaven and earth, there must be extremely powerful demonic beasts. Back in the divine domain, Thunder Eagle King and Death Demon King were not ordinary beasts. Looking at Du Xiaofu's appearance of directly swallowing spiritual herbs, Dugu Finchin and Yelu Han were inwardly shocked. The more they interacted with this mysterious guy, the more mysterious he became. They simply couldn't see through him. The demonic beasts here should still have ancient bloodlines. They must be very powerful. Dugu Finchin looked around, his mind constantly paying attention to his surroundings. He was constantly on guard against everything. The injuries on his body had also gradually healed, and he was no longer in a serious condition. Let's go. There should be a spiritual herb in front. Du Xiaofu packed up several spiritual herbs nearby and looked at the mountain in front of him with a smile on his face. With the scarlet demonic horse bloodline soul, Du Xiaofu could search for spiritual herbs and heavenly treasures as if he was wearing a detector. If only Du Xiaoyao was here. In Du Xiaofu's heart, he could not help but think of Du Xiaoyao. In such a place, if Du Xiaoyao was here, most of the spiritual herbs and heavenly treasures in the heavenly Yu Mountain wouldn't fall into the hands of others. Swoosh, Du Xiaofu soared into the sky, heading towards his next destination. Dugu Finchin and Yelu Han followed him. Not long after, They saw Du Xiaofu plucking a spiritual herb under a towering tree that was suffused with multicolored light and extraordinary energy fluctuations. Does this guy have some kind of secret technique? Yelu Han and Dugu Finchin lowered their heads and looked at each other in dismay. Their hearts were filled with speechless shock. That guy had already found several dozen stalks of precious herbs along the way, and he had never let his guard down. He was always able to find precious herbs and extremely high-level spirit herbs at the fastest speed and the shortest distance. The entire Heavenly Yu Mountain was very big. With Du Xiaofu and Yelu Han's speed, they had already been inside for half an hour, but they were still shuttling through the vast mountain range. Along the way, Du Xiaofu, Yelu Han, and Dugu Finchin really did encounter some mysterious demonic beasts. Their bodies weren't big, but their auras were very powerful. Several of them were at the domain realm. It seemed that because of Yelu Han and Dugu Finchin's faintly discernible auras, those demonic beasts watched the three of them pluck spiritual herbs. Although they were unwilling, they didn't attack. Do you think these demonic beasts have spiritual intelligence? Du Xiaofu looked at the several ancient demonic beasts in the distance curiously. The demonic beasts in the heavenly devil battlefield had already been demonized, but the demonic beasts in the Heavenly Yu Mountain obviously weren't. He just didn't know if it was like the divine domain, where their spiritual intelligence would be affected because of the space restriction. Let's not provoke them. Finding the sacred herb is more important. Yelu Han rolled her eyes at Du Xiaofu. She was really afraid that Du Xiaofu would cause trouble. Where is the sacred herb? Dugu Finchin frowned. It was rumored that there was a sacred herb in the Heavenly Yu Mountain, but he didn't know where it was. Qing, are you in the Heavenly Yu Mountain? Compared to the sacred herb, Du Xiaofu was more worried about Dongli Qing. Aowu, suddenly, the demonic beasts in the distance roared as if they had been summoned by something. The sound waves soared into the sky, shaking the sea of trees. Chapter 1932. Several demonic beasts instantly turned around and left, ignoring Du Xiaofu and the other two. They seemed to have been summoned. Something seems to have happened. Yelu Han raised his eyebrows slightly as light flickered in his eyes. Let's go and take a look. As soon as Du Xiaofu finished speaking, something must have happened in front of him. His toes touched the ground, and his figure turned into an afterimage as he rushed in the direction of the demonic beasts. Yelu Han and Dugu Finchin looked at each other and quickly followed with curiosity. The demonic beasts weren't big, but they were extremely fast in the ancient forest. Du Xiaofu's figure was like lightning as he followed behind them. About a few minutes later, over 100 demonic beasts appeared in front of them. The surrounding rocks were shattered, towering trees were broken, and the ground was cracked. It was a complete mess. Du Xiaofu's figure landed on a large tree in the distance. He gently recorded the scene as he stared straight ahead. A woo! Screech! The demonic beasts on the ground and in the air were roaring. Over 100 demonic beasts were besieging a flock of giant birds. These giant birds were like eagles. They belonged to the demon vulture clan of the beast region. They were very powerful and could be compared to the sky serpent clan. However, the dozen demon vultures of the demon vulture clan were currently besieged by over 100 demonic beasts. Kill. A huge demon vulture emitted monstrous demonic aura as it hovered in the air. Its power was incomparably vast as it flapped its wings and swept out in all directions. Owa. Several leading demonic beasts soared into the sky. Their bodies glowed brightly as mysterious runes erupted from their bodies. They directly clashed with the strongest demon vulture. It's the demon vulture clan fighting with the demonic beasts here. The demonic beasts here are really powerful. Yelu Han and Dugu Finchin landed next to Du Xiaofu. Their faces were solemn as they watched the battle. The leader of the demon vulture clan has reached the peak of the master region. Although there are many demonic beasts, the strongest among them are only 2 at the domain realm. I'm afraid they won't be able to defeat the demon vulture clan, Yelu Han said. Many demonic beast corpses were left in the earth-shattering battle, but there were no demon vulture clan members. The demon vulture clan's demon vulture clans. The Demon Vulture clan's leader was at the peak of the Master region and was protecting the Demon Vulture clan's clan members. However, at this moment, those demonic beasts were still resisting. Their vicious eyes were filled with rage, and they didn't want to leave. Strange. Why are these demonic beasts attacking the Demon Vulture clan so crazily? It seems like they are protecting something, Du Xiaofu muttered. He could feel that something was amiss. Earlier on, those few demonic beasts did not attack the three of them. Yet, at this moment, even though they knew that they were no match for the group of demon eagles, they still chose to fight them head-on without any regard for their own safety. Could it be? Suddenly, Du Xiaofu's eyes lit up as he stared at a certain spot on the mountain that was in a mess. Amidst the monstrous battle and the mysterious runes that filled the sky, there was a bright light that was releasing divine light. There was a red tree vine that was as thick as an arm. Its entire body seemed to be flowing like lava, but it bore a fist-sized green fruit. There seemed to be ripples on the surface of the fruit. Looking from afar, it seemed as if there was a green flame burning on it. Earthly flame, heavenly fruit. That's the earthly flame, heavenly fruit. Dugu Finchen's voice suddenly rang out. His eyes were trembling and his body was trembling with excitement. You recognize that spiritual fruit? Although Du Xiaofu was an expert in spirit medicine and spirit fruits, and there were not many things in the world that he could not recognize, he did not recognize the earth flame, heavenly fruit. He turned around and looked at Dugu Finchen in surprise. It was rare for this guy to be this excited. However, it wasn't difficult for Du Xiaofu to determine that the spiritual fruit was definitely a precious medicine. Moreover, it wasn't an ordinary precious medicine. Its level was much higher than the precious medicines he had obtained along the way. Looking at it from afar, it could make one's soul tremble. It was a rare treasure. The earthly flame heavenly fruit is a legendary medicine. The earthly flame heavenly fruit is a legendary item. It can't be found in this world for a long time. Its value is almost the same as that of a panacea. It's far from being comparable to an ordinary panacea. My cultivation method is a little special. If I can get an earthly flame heavenly fruit, it's enough to make my cultivation method reach a higher level. Then, I'll have some confidence to step into the sage realm in the future. Back then, I sealed myself for thousands of years. In addition to wanting to obtain the greatest opportunity in the space of the god's domain, I also wanted to find an earthly flame heavenly fruit in the space of the god's domain. Unfortunately, I didn't obtain an earthly flame heavenly fruit. Dugu Finchen was very excited. His cultivation technique was very special. If he could obtain an earthly flame heavenly fruit, not only would his cultivation technique advance to the next level, but also his cultivation technique would advance to the next level. That was the most terrifying thing. Dugu Finchen originally thought that there was no earthly flame heavenly fruit in the present world. However, he saw it here at this moment. How could he not be excited? Treasure. It's an absolute treasure. Du Xiaofu's eyes lit up when he heard this. It was almost the same as a sage medicine. Such a treasure was enough to make anyone go crazy. Do we have to intervene? Yalu Han's eyes trembled when he heard this. Such a treasure was enough to tempt him. At this moment, although the Demon Vulture clan had a peak Master Realm expert and a group of extraordinary demonic beasts, if the three of them joined forces, they would definitely have the strength to fight for it. They couldn't just watch such a treasure fall into the hands of the Demon Vulture clan. You only know how to fight and kill. We want the earthly flame, heavenly fruit. Don't fight and kill. After Du Xiaofu rolled his eyes at Yelu Han and Dugu Finchen, his eyes were already fixed on the earthly flame, heavenly fruit. The corners of his mouth curled into a smile. He didn't have good intentions. You guys wait for me here. Hide your aura and don't leave. As his voice fell, Du Xiaofu's figure had already disappeared from the tree without a sound. Dugu Finchen and Yelu Han looked suspicious and puzzled. They seemed to be hesitating, but in the end, they concealed their aura and stayed where they were. Rumble. The void rumbled as the fierce battle continued. The leading Demon Vulture clan erupted. His aura was monstrous, and wherever he flapped his wings, the void would distort and crack. However, there were two Master Realm demonic beasts with mysterious origins. One was like a wolf and a tiger, while the other was like a python. Their bodies were covered in a thick layer of barbs, as if they were covered in sharp swords. The two Master Realm demonic beasts also erupted. Their bodies glowed brightly as they soared hundreds of meters into the air. Amidst clanging sounds, energy waves surged as they besieged the Demon Vulture Clan's leader. However, although the two Master Realm demonic beasts were powerful and came from the ancient era, they weren't a match for the peak Master Realm expert of the Demon Vulture Clan. "You can't stop me." The Demon Vulture Clan's 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 leader. Chapter 1933. At the same time, the leading peak master of the Demon Vulture Clan no longer bothered with them. He flapped his wings and dived towards the earthly flame heavenly fruit, intending to snatch it away. The Demon Vulture Clan's expert was very fast. He pushed back the two domain realm ancient demonic beasts and arrived above the earthly flame heavenly fruit with a flap of his wings. He was about to take the fruit. Swish, however, at that moment, a hand reached out from the void beside the earthly flame heavenly fruit and grabbed it at a speed that was faster than one could cover one's ears with one's hand. The claw of the peak master of the Demon Vulture Clan only left a faint mark in the void, but the earthly flame heavenly fruit had disappeared. "Bastard, you're courting death." In an instant, the peak main region expert of the Demon Vulture Clan had discovered that someone had snatched the earthly flame heavenly fruit right under his nose. How could he let the matter rest? With a loud roar, he swept his wings across the void with a loud boom, tearing through the void and sweeping towards the person who had stretched out his hand. Rumble! The void shattered as the demonic aura of the Demon Vulture Clan flooded the void. Earthly flame heavenly fruit. Whoever sees it will have a share. Such a voice echoed in the void. At the edge of the shattered void, a figure appeared and quickly left. "You're courting death." The peak main region realm expert from the Demon Vulture Clan was furious. His eyes were practically spitting fire. His sharp claws tore through the sky and instantly extended towards the figure, tearing it apart in the void. The figure was torn apart, rippling through the void. In the end, it disappeared without a trace. No blood was left behind. It was just an afterimage that had been torn apart. Swish! That mysterious figure had already appeared in front of them and left like a bolt of lightning. "Bastard!" The Demon Vulture Clan's expert screamed furiously. That was the earthly flame heavenly fruit, which was not far off from a sacred herb. It was about to get it. It was a great opportunity, but who would have thought that it would fly away? He could only watch as someone snatched it from under his nose. How could he let it go? He flapped his wings and gave chase. Awoo! The two domain realm ancient demon beasts that had been knocked back had also stabilized their footing, and upon seeing that someone had snatched the earthly flame heavenly fruit away, they let loose furious roars and gave chase. When the large group of ancient demonic beasts heard the roars of the two leading domain realm ancient demonic beasts, they stopped fighting with the Demon Vulture race's experts and left. Chase after him. The experts of the Demon Vulture tribe seemed to have not recovered from their shock. They were stunned for a moment. Then, someone shouted and the giant demon vultures also rushed into the distance. Awoo! Suddenly, thunderous roars rang out, shaking the earth and mountains. A large group of demonic beasts ran wildly in the air and on the ground. On a distant tree, Dugu Finchin and Yelu Han, who had concealed their auras, watched from afar. The corners of their eyes twitched. Dugu Finchin and Yelu Han hadn't expected that guy to really snatch the earthly flame, heavenly fruit under the nose of the Demon Vulture race. However, the Demon Vulture race's speed was extremely fast. In addition, the Demon Vulture race's leader was at the peak of the main domain realm, and there were over 100 ancient demonic beasts chasing after him. It was like poking a hornet's nest. It wouldn't be easy to escape. No. That guy wants to take the earthly flame, heavenly fruit for himself. Suddenly, Dugu Finchin's expression changed. That guy snatched the earthly flame, heavenly fruit, and left alone. That wasn't an ordinary treasure, but an earthly flame, heavenly fruit. That guy definitely wanted to take it for himself. Yeluhan's expression changed slightly when he heard that. To be honest, he didn't know much about that mysterious guy. If that guy wanted to take a treasure like the earthly flame heavenly fruit for himself, it was indeed possible. Dugu Finchen stared at Yeluhan. Yeluhan was in the same group as that guy. The earthly flame heavenly fruit was just too important to him. Why are you staring at me? I don't know him that well. Yeluhan felt helpless when he saw Dugu Finchen's gaze. He knew Dugu Finchen's character. Although he wasn't afraid of Dugu Finchen, he was still a huge problem once Dugu Finchen set his eyes on him. You two have been together for a long time. Do you think I'll believe you? Dugu Finchen stared at Yeluhan. Obviously, he didn't believe Yeluhan. Swoosh! At this moment, the sound of wind breaking resounded. A figure landed beside Yeluhan and Dugu Finchen. His purple hair fluttered slightly, and there was a smile on his face. Dugu Finchen and Yeluhan were a little surprised when they saw Du Xiaofu suddenly appear. They looked in the direction where Du Xiaofu had disappeared. Didn't that guy escape in that direction? Why did he come back in the opposite direction? This is the most useful thing for you. I'll give it to you. Du Xiaofu smiled and threw the item in his hand to Dugu Finchen. He then said, "Let's go quickly. When that old guy finds out that something is wrong, he will definitely chase after us." As soon as his voice fell, Du Xiaofu's figure left in the opposite direction of the demon vulture clan and the ancient demonic beast expert. Dugu Finchen stretched out his hand, and a fist-sized spirit fruit appeared in his palm. Its body seemed to be covered by a cyan divine flame. It carried a surging energy fluctuation as it appeared in his palm. Under the cover of the cyan divine flame, there was a magma-like scarlet light. It looked like a crystal, sparkling and translucent. It made people's souls tremble and their hearts tremble. Earthly flame, heavenly fruit. Dugu Finchen trembled. This was the earthly flame heavenly fruit he had been searching for thousands of years. At this moment, it was in his palm. Yeluhan looked at the earthly flame heavenly fruit in Du Xiaofu's hand, and her eyes rippled. She then looked in the direction that Du Xiaofu had left with a strange expression. She seemed to be thinking about something mysterious, but she didn't stop. She tapped her foot on the tree branch and followed after him. Dugu Finchen raised his head and looked at Du Xiaofu's back. His scarlet eyes were deep and rippling. He put the earthly flame heavenly fruit into his chinkuan bag and followed after him. Bastard! My demon vulture clan will not let you off. Not long after Du Xiaofu, Yeluhan, and Dugu Finchen left, a huge demon vulture flapped its wings and returned. It roared angrily above the tree where the three of them had just stopped. Its sharp claws crushed the towering tree into powder. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's group was already thousands of miles away. There was a lake that was dozens of miles wide, and several figures were floating above the lake. There were lotus leaves on the surface of the lake. It wasn't an ordinary thing and was filled with multicolored light. There was a golden lotus blooming. It was the size of a baby and was emitting a dazzling light, illuminating the surface of the lake. This golden lotus seemed to be one, but upon closer inspection, there were actually three of them. They were back to back, leaning against each other and blooming. On the petals, mysterious runes were fluctuating in an intricate manner like meridians. We're rich, we're really rich this time. This is a great treasure. Someone laughed loudly. His voice was loud and clear, and his eyes were filled with excitement. Chapter 1934. As soon as he finished speaking, a majestic middle-aged man stepped across the lake, causing waves to ripple as he reached out to grab the golden lotus. Roar! Suddenly, a roar was heard, and the surface of the lake suddenly surged. A flood dragon soared into the sky, causing huge waves to surge up into the sky. The flood dragon instantly pounced towards the majestic middle-aged man, its terrifying aura surging. That was an absolute powerhouse. The majestic middle-aged man's expression changed, and his figure suddenly changed. A scorching red flame spread out, and a palm print distorted the void, like a divine seal, slamming out with the roar of a lion. Roar! When this palm print was formed and slammed out, the void trembled, and the scorching aura caused the temperature of the lake to rise. Lava fell into the water, causing huge waves to ripple. The flood dragon collided with the palm print, causing the void to tremble and the surrounding lake to explode. With a rumble, the flood dragon was forced back, and blood began to flow from its mouth. The flood dragon was no match for the majestic middle-aged man, and its ferocious eyes glowed as it looked towards the golden lotus. Its figure instantly rushed out, its mouth spewing out a terrifying aura. It wanted to swallow the golden lotus directly, and it could not allow it to be taken away by others. "This 3 lives golden lotus is mine. Get out of my way." The middle-aged man had an invisible majestic aura, and his aura was fierce. With a wave of his hand, scorching flames erupted, condensing into a huge, flaming lion. This was the beast ability of the flaming lion, a demonic beast that could be compared to the sky snake. It erupted with 100,000 feet of fire, and flames splashed in all directions. Divine light surged as it pounced towards the flood dragon. The flood dragon was blocked, and it had no choice but to use its full strength. This part of the void shattered, and the flood dragon roared endlessly. In the end, it destroyed the flaming lion beast ability, and the runes shattered. However, this delay at this moment allowed the middle-aged man to appear above the 3 lives golden lotus. With a smile on his face, he reached out with his hand, wanting to pluck the 3 lives golden lotus. The 3 lives golden lotus, the fated one shall obtain it. However, at this moment, laughter rang out. Just as the majestic middle-aged man's hand was about to reach for the 3 lives golden lotus, another hand was faster than the majestic middle-aged man, instantly grabbing the 3 lives golden lotus. "You're courting death." The majestic middle-aged man's expression changed drastically. He was instantly enraged. The arm that he had stretched out shook, and a claw print directly tore through the space and swept out. This claw mark tore apart the spatial ripples, causing the void to tremble. Huge waves surged on the surface of the lake, emitting blazing flames. However, that figure escaped. His figure was like a bolt of lightning, leaving behind only his back as he swaggered off. "Bastard, you can't escape!" The middle-aged man shouted as a terrifying aura erupted from his body. In an instant, he transformed into a gigantic fire-red demon lion and furiously chased after the silhouette. Roar! Roar! That frightening dragon roar followed closely behind. A couple of figures were stunned for a moment. Soon after, all of them transformed into red fire demon lions. Amidst a series of lion roars that shook the sky, huge waves rose on the surface of the lake as they chased into the distance. The surface of the lake gradually calmed down, but it was already a mess. The lotus leaves that filled the lake began to wither and then disappeared into the lake. On a mountain peak outside the lake, there were 2 figures hiding their auras as they watched everything from afar. One of them was dressed in red and had a deep gaze. The other had a handsome face. He was dressed in a dark red robe with a hood that covered half of his head. His eyes were deep and dark, and they were sharp. Whoosh! A third figure appeared beside the 2 of them. His purple hair reached his shoulders, and before he landed, a voice rang out, "Let's go, that lion might catch up." The expressions of the red-clothed man and the sharp man changed slightly. They were somewhat helpless, but they also seemed to become enthusiastic. They immediately followed the purple-haired man and left. A moment later, on the mountain peak, 3 men were sitting in a circle. The aroma of barbecued meat filled the air, and wine came out of nowhere. They were eating heartily. At this moment, aside from Du Xiaofu, Yelu Han, and Dugu Fenchen, who had used a disguise technique, it was impossible for them to be anyone else. "The taste is not bad." Du Xiaofu drank wine and ate barbecued meat. What shocked Yelu Han and Dugu Fenchen was that the way Du Xiaofu ate the barbecued meat was not ordinary. He ate the fragrant barbecued meat with spirit herbs raw. Those stalks of spirit herbs, which were worth a lot in the outside world, were like vegetables in this guy's mouth. Those spirit herbs were of high quality, and they emitted a bright light that shrouded Du Xiaofu's body. It was as if he was covered in a layer of divine radiance. Du Xiaofu didn't pay attention to Yelu Han and Dugu Fenchen's occasional surprised and shocked expressions. Although these spirit herbs weren't as pure as after being refined, it saved him a lot of effort. In the end, he could rely on the cultivation method of the golden-winged Great Pung clan to absorb the spirit herb's energy and nourish his body. Most importantly, it could increase his strength. If it was the outside world, even if Du Xiaofu was rich, he would not dare to eat such spirit herbs. He would definitely feel heartache. However, there were spirit herbs everywhere in the heavenly Yu Mountain. Du Xiaofu would not be reluctant to part with them. Now was the time to urgently increase his strength. If he wanted to step into the sage realm, it was not enough to rely on sufficient Xian Qi. However, Du Xiaofu's Xian Qi was not enough. If he could increase his Xian Qi, it would be a good foundation for him to step into the sage realm in the future. Rest for a while, I'm full. After a while, Du Xiaofu sat down cross-legged and circulated his cultivation method to heal himself. However, he did not expose himself. Looking at Du Xiaofu, Yeluhan and Dugu Finshan raised their eyebrows and also sat down cross-legged to circulate their cultivation method. After resting for 4 hours, Du Xiaofu opened his eyes. He still had not found Dongli Qingqing. Du Xiaofu was definitely interested in the legendary Saint Herb in the heavenly Yu Mountain. At this moment, there was not much time to waste. Let's continue to search for the Saint Herb. Du Xiaofu stood up and stretched. Although he had changed his appearance, one could still see that his body was sparkling and had an invisible power. You have already robbed the Demon Vulture clan and the Fiery Red Lion clan. Be careful. Yeluhan reminded Du Xiaofu. This guy was really not afraid of trouble. He had already offended many people on the heavenly Yu Mountain. Not to mention, he had offended the Legalism clan and the Dragons, then the Heavenly Snake clan, and now the Fiery Red Lion clan and the Demon Vulture clan. He had so many enemies, and all of them were terrifying. Ordinary people would not dare to appear on the heavenly Yu Mountain after offending just one of them. Even he, who had been targeted by the Legalism clan and the Dragons, would not dare to appear on the heavenly Yu Mountain if it were not for the alliance with Du Xiaofu. But what shocked Yeluhan was that the guy in front of him was not afraid at all. He had offended so many big forces, but no one was worried about him. Du Xiaofu smiled at Yeluhan and Dugu Finshan. Why? Are you afraid? Humph. What's there to be afraid of? Isn't it just treasure hunting? Treasures belong to those who are fated to obtain them. Dugu Finshan raised his eyes, and a red light appeared in his deep eyes. The injuries on his body were getting better and better. I'm not afraid. I've never been afraid. Yeluhan glanced at Du Xiaofu indifferently. He was just being careful. He was not afraid. That's good. Let's go and continue to rob. Du Xiaofu's voice suddenly stopped, and he smiled embarrassedly. Then, he said with incomparable holiness and majesty, continue to search for treasures. Treasures belong to those who are fated to obtain them. Treasures belong to those who are fated to obtain them. Yeluhan and Dugu Finshan looked at each other and smiled knowingly. They naturally understood the meaning behind Du Xiaofu's words. How was it fated to obtain them? He was clearly seizing the opportunity to rob them. But at this moment, Yeluhan and Dugu Finshan's eyes were filled with anticipation. The two of them were undoubtedly influenced by Du Xiaofu along the way. Treasures like the earthly flame, heavenly fruit, and the 3 lives golden lotus naturally could not fall into the hands of others. They were clear in their hearts that if the 3 of them joined forces, they would be able to occupy one side of the heavenly Yu Mountain. Then, the 3 of them conversed. Those true high-grade treasures were guarded by powerful ancient demonic beasts, so they had to be careful. After all, these treasures are the trump cards of those ancient demonic beasts. We have to be careful. Du Xiaofu also nodded in agreement. This heavenly Yu Mountain was very strange. There might be Saint Realm demonic beasts here. It was best not to provoke those local snakes. Actually, I think it's not a bad idea to reap the benefits of others. Dugu Finshan smiled faintly. He felt that seizing the treasures from the Demon Vulture race and the Red Fire Demonic Lion race wasn't a bad idea. Hee. Du Xiaofu chuckled. It seemed like Dugu Finshan wasn't as righteous as he seemed. After packing up, the 3 of them left. The 3 of them turned into rainbows that were filled with majesty and power. Even though the 3 of them had restrained their auras, they still gave off an indescribable feeling that made the hearts of all living beings tremble. With the Scarlet Demonic Horse bloodline soul, Du Xiaofu could easily find treasures. At this moment, experts from various races had barged into the heavenly Yu Mountain. They were all searching for treasures in the legendary Saint Medicine. The three of them were not interested in ordinary cultivators and spiritual herbs, even if they were just passing by. On a cliff of a high mountain, an incomparably huge black bear roared with its head held high. In front of it was a demonic leopard covered in scales that was on the verge of death. On top of the cliff, there was a huge rock that was filled with majestic energy. In the middle of the rock, there was a gorgeous flower that bloomed like the morning sun. That's the Raging Bear Region Lord of the immemorial Violent Bear Region. Before I sealed it, it was already a famous expert. However, it's still at the peak of the domain realm after so long. No wonder it came to the heavenly Yu Mountain to look for opportunities. Dugu Fenchen's figure appeared in the void and said softly, "That's the endless sky Saint Flower, a great treasure." Yelu Han's eyes lit up as he recognized the flower that was filled with the morning sun. It was a treasure medicine of an extremely high level. It wasn't something ordinary treasures could compare to. Attack! Dugu Fenchen didn't hesitate and rushed out. In an instant, his figure appeared behind the immemorial Violent Bear and punched out fiercely. Chapter 1935. The primordial Violent Bear stood on the cliff. It was huge and radiant. Feeling the sneak attack behind it, it turned around and its eyes shone brightly. "You're courting death," the Raging Bear Region Lord shouted. He was a peak domain realm expert. With his powerful physical defense, he wasn't afraid of a sneak attack at all. The Raging Bear Region Lord directly attacked with his huge bear paw. With a rumble, the space above the mountain began to riot, and spatial ripples surged into the sky. The Raging Bear Region Lord's every move was filled with violent energy. It was extremely powerful. But this time, the Raging Bear Region Lord made a mistake. He was unlucky because he met Dugu Fenchen. When Dugu Fenchen's fist touched, it instantly released a terrifying heat. It was like a volcanic eruption, directly engulfing the bear paw. At the same time, the ancient flame armor on Dugu Fenchen's body burst out with blazing divine power. Sizzle! The Raging Bear Region Lord was forced back. His huge body staggered backward. His huge bear paw was covered in flames, as if it was about to be roasted. Fire cloud, evil god Dugu Fenchen. The Raging Bear Region Lord roared like thunder. He recognized Dugu Fenchen. They had fought thousands of years ago. His eyes were filled with anger, but he was also afraid. The endless sky Saint Flower belongs to the Fated One. Yelu Han appeared in front of the endless sky Saint Flower and reached out to pick it. "How dare you? How could the Raging Bear Region Lord be willing to give up such a treasure?" He immediately roared and tried to stop him. "You're not strong enough," Dugu Fenchen said. He exploded with power and quickly blocked the Raging Bear Region Lord with a punch. Bang! Du Xiaofu appeared. He came and went like a ghost, drifting like a god. His fist landed on the Raging Bear Region Lord's head. This sneak attack was a solid one. The back of the Wild Bear Domain Lord's head immediately emitted a rumbling sound, and a large bump immediately appeared. His head buzzed, and he was immediately stunned. "Let's go." Yelu Han had already plucked the endless sky holy flower and left immediately. Du Xiaofu and Dugu Fenchen didn't stay any longer. The three of them left in a flash. Before the Raging Bear Domain ruler could recover from his shock, the three figures had already disappeared with the endless sky holy flower. "Dugu Fenchen, I'm not done with you," the Wild Bear Domain Lord roared. His enormous body immediately crossed the mountain and roared angrily at Dugu Fenchen's back. However, the Raging Bear Region ruler didn't give chase. He just noticed that the other person besides Dugu Fenchen was the heavenly fiend Yelu Han and the mysterious purple-haired man. The three of them were simply too powerful. Even if it chased after them, it would only be looking for a beating. There was no way it would be able to snatch back the endless sky holy flower. An hour later, an old man roared in anger within the mountain range. His hair danced in the wind as he condensed a fist imprint in his hand. The light before his fist shot into the heavens. Dugu Fenchen took action. His body was covered in ancient flame armor. His fist erupted with blazing fiery light, as he collided with the former. Boom! The void trembled. That old man was very strong, but he was not Dugu Finchen's opponent. His body was sent flying and smashed into a mountain peak. Puff! The old man spat out blood and rushed out. His body was in intense pain, but he didn't lose his vigilance. Profound chi protected his body. Let's go, however. At this moment, Du Xiaofu rushed out from under a cliff. His hand was filled with multicolored light as he held a stalk of precious medicine in his hand. Swoosh, swoosh. The three figures left without lingering. The old man's face was pale and his eyes were twitching. Dugu Finchen, Yeluhan, my ancient fist sect is not done with you. The old man roared angrily as he watched the precious medicine that was about to be snatched away. However, he didn't dare to chase after them. The old man was enraged. His body emitted a dazzling light. His fist smashed in all directions with an invincible momentum. The energy swept out like a wave, shattering many towering trees and boulders. However, at this moment, Du Xiaofu, Yeluhan, and Dugu Finchen had already left. Following that, the heavenly Yu Mountain was in an uproar. The fire cloud evil god Dugu Finchen, the heavenly demon Yeluhan, and the mysterious purple-haired man joined forces to snatch the heavenly treasures and spiritual medicines that were about to fall into the hands of many experts and forces. These three could be said to be extremely arrogant and domineering. They didn't put the various forces and experts in their eyes at all. It was unknown how many experts and forces had been plundered by them. The three of them attacked suddenly every time, taking advantage of the unpreparedness. Two of them attacked while the others seized the precious medicine and heavenly treasures. They didn't leave empty-handed and left after the deed was done. Many experts and forces suffered losses. Although they were furious, they couldn't do anything. They knew that they weren't a match for Dugu Finchen and Yeluhan's group. They were two supremes and were absolutely powerful. During this period of time, the most shocking thing that Du Xiaofu's group of three had done was without a doubt taking away an extraordinary medicine right under the noses of the Dragon Clan right in front of Long Ming. Long Ming was injured again, and it was said that several experts of the Dragon Clan had died as well. This news shook the entire Heavenly Yu Mountain. Everyone was cautious and on guard against the three people, fearing that they would snatch the treasures. Many victims began to form an alliance, wanting to find the three people and take back the treasures. As more and more people were snatched by the three people, more and more people formed an alliance. In a deep valley, water dripped from a mountain stream and mist rose. Three figures were sitting cross-legged, meditating and adjusting their breathing. Dugu Finchen and Yeluhan were enveloped in dazzling radiance. Profound energy fluctuated with the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The two of them had consumed the heavenly treasures and obtained many benefits. At this moment, they were clearly at a critical juncture of refining. Chi. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged, opened his eyes. A white divine light flashed in his eyes. Swoosh, swoosh, bursts of wind-breaking sounds resounded, coming from all directions. Powerful auras filled the air, coming from the distant sky. Chi. Du Xiaofu looked at Yeluhan and Dugu Finchen, who were at a critical juncture of refining. He formed hand seals, condensing a powerful seal that instantly enveloped Yeluhan and Dugu Finchen. Waves of runes spread out, releasing dazzling light. The seal was arranged, instantly isolating Yeluhan and Dugu Finchen. The mysterious runes of the talisman enveloped them like a light shield. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In an instant, wind-breaking sounds resounded. No less than 200 figures descended from all directions around the mountain stream. Waves of vast auras swept across the sky. In particular, the auras of the leaders from all directions were incomparably powerful. None of them were weak. Du Xiaofu raised his head slightly, looking at the numerous figures around the mountain stream. He couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. The Fire-Red Demon Lion Clan, the Demon Vulture Clan, the Wild Bear Domain Lord, the Heavenly Snake Clan. Looking at the figures around, how could Du Xiaofu not be familiar with them? They were all from the Fire-Red Demon Lion Clan, but he didn't expect that the Heavenly Snake Clan would also join in. There were no less than 200 people. But at this moment, Du Xiaofu's eyes were fixed on Long Ming, whom he had seen again a day ago. There was a figure standing quietly there,